This is the XNC Podcast, your Xbox newscast featuring Colteastwood, hosting industry interviews and gaming talk live on YouTube every Monday night at 5 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. For all of you listening around the world, XNC Podcast is available on demand on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Welcome to the show. Join the chat, hit the like button, and let's get into this week's topics with the XNC Podcast live. How you doing? I'm Colteastwood, and it never fails. Every time I hit the live button for this show, I get a little bit nervous. I get super anxious. I get very excited. Today is really going to be a different and exciting show. I've got two new guests that are new to XNC. I've got one that's a super great close friend and another one that I can't wait to join the ranks of great people in this community that I can call a good acquaintance and a friend as well. I'm super excited to see everybody in the chat. We've got over 250 people here that are checking out the show. Like I said in the intro and the pre-recorded part of me, please hit the like button if you think you're going to have a good time. We've got a ton to talk about. It's going to be such a great show. It's going to be very Bethesda focused and Xbox exclusive focused. So I'm super excited. First, I got to announce and welcome to the show, good friend of mine, the podcast extraordinaire, the one who everyone sees on every show. This is the nicest guy on the planet, Hargy Johnny. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the XNC podcast, bud.
You usually say, I'm doing well enough every time I ask you.
Yeah.
So this is it. I'm so happy to have you. Tell the audience, like, where you came from, what egg you hatched out high atop a tree. What's your claim to fame? Tell them.
So I mean, I've been watching like the community videos for quite a while, but I started to actually interact in the chat probably like 6-8 months ago, something like that. It hasn't been too long, and then suddenly I started to get more and more popular for some reason. So at some point I was able to get on a Xbox Live chat with Colt, right, with you, and then I started catching up with the RDX folks, and then through there with Gaz, and now I'm on Game On Daily, which is Gaz's, Gaz and Asa's channel and website. So yeah, I've been kind of growing up through the podcast ranks. I've been on the Attic Show, and now I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, you're here. It's amazing. It's it really is. Like, Hargy stays invested in like all these great shows that we watch, all these great podcasts, and everyone sees him in the chat. He's very active, very supportive, has a lot of really great, funny chats, and then he's got some really good points. And just goes to show, like, there's so many great people. And when I look at the chat over here, all these names that I see all the time, I wish I could read them out. You got Game Punisher, you've got JT Gamer, Yodani Quezada, I've got Happy Bomb and Yodani who are modding the chat. And thank you so much. I was nervous asking this guy to my show. I got to welcome to the XNC podcast. This is a big Bethesda and ZeniMax YouTuber. This guy digs into the very details further than most of us would dig about the games that are coming up, what's in the works. He's got over 25,000 subscribers on YouTube with his no small feat. Let me tell you what, Skullsy, welcome to the XNC podcast.
Hey, thank you very much. Awesome to be here. Looking forward to discussing Xbox and, of course, Bethesda. For those that don't know me, Colt said it. I cover mostly Bethesda stuff, always trying to dig into new rumors and speculation. And sometimes we find some interesting things, which we'll get into here in the show.
Yeah. I mean, come on now. Come on. You can be a little more energetic than that. Cause like, this is some cool stuff to be able to kind of talk to people here and there and build up these videos, like really dive in. So I'm really happy to have you here. We're going to get into that. Like Skullsy said, thanks for everybody in the chat. Before we get rolling, I got to give a shout out to the channel Member veterans Ricky Falon, Zenner White, Poochie, Wolf Assassin, DeBlue, Devario 2 Gaming, Fault Lines, Wreak Havoc, Fox Storytelling, Roddy Coots, Gaz, Dark CMF, Betamax, Dante Moody, Alex Wilson, Lord Starkiller, Robert Jackson, Gamer McFly, Assassin Lupa, Nano Polymyth, Suicide King, Udana Kizada, Phil, KY Bob, William Lanza, and Matt Burns. Thank you so much. If you join the channel membership, as I do a commercial on my show, you will get custom emojis I drew, and you'll get your name highlighted in the chat, and it just makes you look amazingly elite. But now, for thank you so much for all your support. Over 400 people here checking out the show. We've got to talk about what's going on with these acquisitions. We got to talk about what in the heck is going on with Bethesda and these games we're about to see. And we're going to talk about the Xbox Game Studios showcase with Bethesda as well. We've got a lot ahead of us, but I got to ask before we get rolling, this is a gaming podcast. Hargy, what have you been playing the most right now?
The most, it's probably Halo. So we do the community game night thing, and I think I ended up playing the most of that. But I've also been playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. I've been trying to get through that. I'm on like chapter 4 or 5. I'm sure there's like 30 chapters. They're usually very, very long games. But yeah, so that's been the most of it. And then I've been playing a little bit of other indie titles that are in Game Pass. And then on the Switch, I've started, I think about like a third of the way through that new Kirby game. So playing that as well.
Nice. I got to welcome to the chat and to the channel membership, Jose Linares. Thank you. Welcome to early access. It says he's got the Joanna Dark picture that I drew up. She's got the red hair, just looking. I wish I had that kind of hair, but I don't. Welcome to the channel membership. Shout out to Sean Labrie and my man Paris giving the eyeball emojis. We were having some fun with that this week. Paris is hilarious. Really good guy. I got to ask Skulzy, what game has got you locked down right now? What have you been playing?
Well, I recently got Game Pass, and Game Pass is just like having free access to an entire game store. So I've been going back and playing, like right now I'm on No Man's Sky because I'm in that Starfield mood. I'm in that space exploration mood. And I started playing a little bit more Fallout 76 just because the last time I played it, it was kind of buggy and it's been a while. So I figured I'd try it again. But for the most part, I'm stuck on No Man's Sky. It's definitely a lot better than it was. And I'm trying to get my mind and like my gamer like hype started up for Starfield here soon, because we're like, it's getting close. We're just 40 something days away from a gameplay reveal and less than 200 days away from the release date. So yeah.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I actually loaded up No Man's Sky a couple weeks ago, and I'm so lost. And I get the comment once in a while. I know you probably get the comment in your videos, like, is this going to be another No Man's Sky? We're going to dig into what is and what isn't Starfield and what Forum Dev is saying about that. Sweeping Vistas, thank you for the Australian $2. Says, happy Eid al-Fitr. Oh, well, I mean, Hargeet can say that. Hargeet and Gaz. Is that the eve of Ramadan? Which he maybe just thinks that you do Ramadan, right?
I don't, but Eid al-Fitr, but yeah. I don't.
See, look at that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sweeping Vista. Poochie, who's been a member for 12 months, says, Hargy, Skulzy, Colt, ready for some Bethesda news and speculation. Speculation time. Can't wait for Starfield. Hit the like button. The speculation ants. If you're going to have a good time, and you're having a good time right now, show your support by moving the chat out of the way. Just hit the like button. Come right back. We'll still be here waiting for you. And Robert Jackson, thank you so much for the $5. Says, Colt, nice lineup tonight. We talking Lone Wolves tonight. Yeah, the season 2 for Halo starts tomorrow, or was it today? Hargeet, are you chomping at the bit?
Yeah, I think it does start tomorrow, right? Is that when it is? The 3rd? I think that was the date that I remember. I know people were ready to start it immediately. I'm okay with waiting till the weekend. I know we're gonna have community game night, and I'm happy that there's more maps. It is kind of annoying to have the same map cycle. So yeah, that'd be great to get a couple of new maps. Wish there were more, but we'll take the 2
Wish
that
there
we
was
get.
Forge.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that would be really cool, right? At least we can start mucking with them, and we can make some community maps. It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, when it comes. It comes. It comes. At some point, it will. Yep. It will. Just like co-op. That'd be nice.
I don't even know if we'll get into Halo today, but I got to give a shout out to Gaming Forte in the chat. It says, welcome home, bro. So I spent the end of the week and part of the weekend with a couple people from Xbox. We might talk about that later if we have some time, but very cool to be able to do that. And I'm super, super happy. But let's get into the topics. We got to start out by the absolute bomb. Last night, I was playing Xbox like super late. I should have gone to bed. And Special Nick from Xbox Era sent me a party invite. I'm like, okay, he doesn't invite me to parties too often. Something's up. And we just started talking for a few minutes. And right then the news dropped, Skullsy, that Embracer had paid and bought Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal. Tell me what you know about this. Are you learned in the ways?
Well, I mean, this seems like first of all, before I get into my thoughts on that, this seems like this is the season of gaming acquisitions. I've been following gaming news for a long time, and I don't remember any other period of time that has been so just full of not only acquisitions, but just big ones, right? Like Blizzard, Activision, and now this is just insane. And that's so much of my childhood in one purchase. I think they got such a great deal for $300 million. All those IPs they got, I believe it's over 50 IPs. And we're talking about Tomb Raider, which is one of the biggest ones out there in terms of just longest running IPs. And man, I have to look up the list of it because there's just so many big titles on this. Square Enix, obviously. And then, of course, what's the one that people really want to have brought back? Deus Ex, right? So that's yet another big title. They have so much potential here if they play this right to not only magnify the $300 million they spent on this to be like huge profit, but also to bring back these legendary titles in new and different ways. Tomb Raider obviously hasn't necessarily disappeared, but it's changed up its gameplay style, its story narratives, which may not be bad. But the one thing I want to focus on is Deus Ex, because that's such a unique not only game world, but it was kind of ahead of its time in many ways. And it's comparable to Bethesda Game Studios titles in terms of the first person immersion, the different ways you can go about doing things. Just $300 million to me is just insane, because I would think that this would be worth 600 million plus, if not maybe more. I mean, we're looking at the Bethesda purchase was huge, but I feel like this purchase has more weight to it. Now, obviously, the Bethesda purchase, there's legendary developers there. You got id Studios, you got obviously Bethesda Game Studios, Arcane, but it seems like they have such a huge library of IPs now, and they already have a bunch of stuff to begin with. They have Gearbox in their ranks. They have THQ Nordic. So this is such a big conglomerate, which brings me to my next thing. Anytime this has happened in the news, you hear the term monopoly. You hear all the Twitter lawyers arguing about whether or not this is a monopoly. And I'd argue this might be, in terms of just IP load alone, perhaps one of the biggest acquisitions, especially when you consider all the other stuff they already have under their belt as well. This is huge, and I'm curious to see how this is going to be reflected in the gaming community and what direction the community is going to respond to this, because it's still pretty early on.
Right. They just entered into an agreement. I didn't do a very good job as a host setting up the topic, because I saw some people in the chat asking questions. Yes, Skullsy said it perfectly. They're in agreement to buy these three main studios and over 50 IPs that would possibly come with them, or would come with them, that are belong to those studios, for $300 million. And digging back, the Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusivity deal for 1 year was about $100 million, I think. Hargy, what... You've had some really great insight. We've talked before the show, just kind of hanging out. Tell us like how you reacted to this Embracer and what's really going on.
I mean, if you look at this from like Square perspective, I mean, there had to be enough of a schism for them to say, we're going to just jettison this stuff, especially when you see all these billion-dollar deals. Bungie just got bought for $3.6 billion. How many IPs does that come with? 2? I mean, like, just think about what... You know, and they just jettisoned this for $300 million, right? We're back to like the Insomniac deal of 230 or whatever million it was, which was an unbelievable steal when you compare it to what's happening now. 70 billion for Activision, right? I mean, it's like, so this is an interesting move, and I'm interested to find out the reasoning behind them jettisoning these studios off for that much money. There had to be a reason for them to say this isn't even worth like getting more money, because I could just imagine them saying, hey, we're going to sell this entire thing and not getting into billions. But maybe this stuff that's going on, right, that just says, no, we're not going to bother. Xbox might have looked at him and said, no, It'd be interesting to find out what the behind the scenes stuff was at some point. I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, so what I find interesting in this whole thing is Microsoft is already paying one of these studios to make a game, right? That's Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you take the amount they're going to be paying, it's got to be in that 50 to 100 million range, right? It's got to be like you're paying for them to develop a whole game, right? They paid 100 million just for exclusivity to finish Tomb Raider, right? To allow that game to finish, and then and it was a 1 year exclusive. I think it was a couple months for PC, but one year for PlayStation. And so looking at that, you're like, well, pay a couple hundred more and you just buy the whole bloody thing. Why did they do it? There had to be some interesting reasons why not, right?
I think you're kind of you're kind of leading us along the pathway, Hargeet, and Skolzy as well. Like what really is going on, and as I look at the chat, I think the chat is keyed in as well that Crystal Dynamics immediately responded. I think an hour or two later, because this announcement came out at around 11:30 p.m. on the West Coast. This announcement that Embracer was, again, this acquisition deal. And I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but it's so weird because this is a situation where Crystal Dynamics said immediately, don't worry, we're working on Perfect Dark with Xbox. We're going to continue to work on that project with them until we're done, which was something that like the public relations had to say, we have to get out here and let people know we're working on a AAA game for the Initiative Studio and Xbox. And we're not just going to say, oh, well, we're bought, so good luck. Go give that to the team that made Crackdown 3 or something like that. So it is a little dicey. Hargy also said something, chat. He said maybe Microsoft looked at Crystal Dynamics and thought, like that's what you said, right? So, Skolzy, tell us what you know. Have you kind of looked into this whole thing about debt with Square Enix and their Western studios? How does that all plan out?
I heard that apparently it's attributed to mismanagement, which ties into perhaps why this deal may have been such a lucrative one, or at least an affordable one, I guess. Because if you have to do a bunch of legwork to get this half of or any large percentage of your acquisition to become profitable and to become self-sustaining in terms of not needing such direct oversight all the time, I would say that would definitely take away considerably from the overall just value of this acquisition. And I think that's kind of true, especially when we see how the Western division of like Square Enix and has been handling some of their titles. And also an interesting thing that I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that half of this is going to be used up in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Half of this purchase somehow is going to be transferred over to crypto, which just makes this whole thing even more bizarre. I kind of buy into, I think he hardly brought up a great point about Microsoft, because Microsoft likely would have not wanted to be associated with this given the current ongoing situation with the Activision Blizzard purchase. There's a lot of discourse about whether or not this will be approved or not, and they might not want to broaden their envelope too fat during this kind of discussion. So I think that might have happened, and that might also play into why this deal was as cheap as it was, because if Microsoft turned it down, if the Western divisions need a bunch of oversight and restructuring to become something that can efficiently run on its own and produce good games and good quality products, then yeah, I think that 300 million might start to make a little bit more sense. But this is just me analyzing on the outside. Like I don't have direct knowledge as to why exactly or how this went down, but that's just me kind of guessing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good take. Actually, there is the very first thing I thought was, what if, okay, let's so we don't linger on this too long, because really the outset of this whole thing is Embracer bought Eidos Montreal, who made Guardians of the Galaxy and Deus Ex and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And they bought Crystal Dynamics that made Rise of the Tomb Raider, and they're working on Perfect Dark, right? So we know that. But the real meat of this is Embracer bought them. They're going to make these multi-plat. The only way this goes south if you're listening, you're an Xbox fan and you really only want to play on an Xbox for your main gaming platform, right? Obviously, these are multi-plat games. These are games that will still be on your Xbox unless Sony comes in and buys timed exclusivity. But the deal is that I gotta kind of frame this to Hargeet. what, because it looks like Square Enix wanted to get rid of their Western, I'll do it this direction for people watching the camera, their Western studios, if you're looking at my Google map on my brain, the Western studios, which weren't making a lot of money. I love it when my phone pops up thinking I'm talking to Google.
Yeah.
I just look down like, hey, Square Enix says so many times, Hargy, we're below expectations with our Western studios. This game didn't meet expectations. It didn't sell as much. What have they thought? They're not making very much money. They don't make a big profit. Let's sell them to someone. We can concentrate on mainly Final Fantasy and the other related games. And now will be more affordable for PlayStation to buy Square.
That's a possibility. Yeah. There's another possibility that, Microsoft saw this. It's a possibility that maybe Square Enix was in potential for Sony. Maybe even these studios. Maybe Sony was going after them. And behind the scenes, they're like, well, we can't go buy them right now because we're an ABK deal. Let's see if Embracer can buy. So you don't know if some of these things are happening, right? So it totally could be that. And to your point, it could be, yep, they're just jettisoning off the part that's causing them to be underperforming and making their value higher so that, they can then ask for more from, I don't know who might, if they're even on the market, that Sony might buy them or Microsoft might buy them or somebody else might buy them, right? Because again, there's also private equity companies and plenty of other investors that are saying, hey, gaming is the entertainment vehicle that makes money now. Why aren't we in this, right? So we only think of like the big three, but there's plenty of other companies that might be interested in trying to buy a publisher that makes games that actually do make money, right? And they just announced the Kingdom Hearts. That's going to be a big seller. It's been a very popular series, right? Yep. They've got the Final Fantasy stuff going on, right? So I'm sure they'll be profitable. Hopefully they'll get more profitable with this, and certainly they're bringing in $300 million, right? So that's going to help. But yeah, it could be something like that. It could be that they're just making themselves look better. Now, I think they also own some other business things that are not tangential to gaming, right? So that have to figure
like a flip flop company, or they sell swizzle straws or something.
I don't know. They have some other stuff going on, right? And it's like it's not in any way related to gaming. So they would have to kind of figure out how to make that work. But whatever, right? So that. It is a possibility that could be it. That it's really just they're trying to make themselves look more attractive to a potential buyer.
I mean, it kind of is like trimming the fat. And like, as much as I love Guardians of the Galaxy, like, chat, let me know, like, did you love Guardians of the Galaxy? I really like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and I really like a lot of these games. Deus Ex, I know Skolzy's with me. Deus Ex, Human Revolution, and Mankind Divided are fantastic games. Mm-hmm. But I was talking to Randall Thor. I like talking to Randall Thor. I talk to him every day. He's so smart. He said those games just didn't make a lot of money. They like barely made a profit. And when you're investing all that time to build a game, and then when you finally get the payoff and it's just barely enough, Hargeet really nailed it. Trim the fat, get those Western studios somewhere else so that they can like focus in on Forspoken, Final Fantasy series, Kingdom Hearts, right? Like some of those other games where they can really hit. But I don't know. We'll see. In the super chats here, I got to read a couple of them because they kind of go along with acquisition things, because everybody wants to know, is Xbox going to strike right now? And I know kind of where you guys are sitting on this, but Stop Madness, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Says Xbox needs to get WB. Now there's one studio that if I think Xbox wants to buy just a studio from WB, there's one studio that is the studio for them to get. Skolzy, do you know a WB studio that Xbox might be interested in for their portfolio?
Well, I can say that I've been hearing a lot of stuff that licensing, acquiring new licenses for things, or making use of old licenses that you have for stuff like Marvel and WB, I'm sure, is something that's kind of an interest right now. But Warner Brothers, I mean, they're dropping the Harry Potter game, which is coming soon, right? Warner Brothers is such a huge huge collection of IP that I think even if they didn't have an inherent one in mind, that just being able to have access to this big grand library of potential IPs would be huge, in my opinion. But as to any specific Warner Brothers property, I don't think I've heard like anything concrete. I mean, it's just all up to rumors or speculation or personal interest at this point. But here we are again talking about more big acquisitions. So I mean, this if anything like that's going to happen, it would probably happen this year, and we would probably hear about it this year, because it just seems like this is something that's going to be the gift that keeps on giving.
I know, it's like, just fill our hopes and dreams. And I think the chat knew where I was leading them. A lot of you said NetherRealm, and Xbox really needs a strong studio to take care of the fighting genre. Whether they put them on, like, Killer Instinct versus Mortal Kombat would be huge, absolutely huge. And for them to go out and buy one studio, it could keep them out of the Activision Blizzard laser beams of doom. But that is good. We might talk about a little bit more about WB, and if you have any more questions, drop them in. Wolf Assassin, thank you so much for the $10 super. Says someone on Twitter mentioned Microsoft or Sony can counter offer like EA did. He's talking about counter offering the Embracer Group deal. They did with Codemasters and Take-Two. If so, should Microsoft do it? Square has to consider all offers by law anyway. Why not? Hargeet, is that true? Does Square have to wait until if a second offer comes in, they have to consider it? I don't know how that works.
They don't have to consider it, because this is not a buyout, right? So it's not shareholders, right? This is them selling off assets, right? So they don't have to, but like in the deal, like with like ABK, right? There's this famous, like, they have to pay $3 billion if something goes wrong, right? Well, you could have those kind of items in your contract to say, if you take somebody else's offer, you owe us $30 million or something like that, right? So I don't know if they have any of those in there, right? I don't know if Embracer is big enough to be able to put something like that in there. So they may not, right? They maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? So it just depends on the language in the deal as to whether they have one of those in there or not, right? In the case of the one with Microsoft, we know that there is one, right? Either side breaks it, they owe quite a few dollars there, a couple $1 billion to get out of that deal. So when it comes to shareholders, if it was a shareholder thing, yes, they should entertain it if there isn't a fiduciary headache, right? If there is no like clause like that, yeah, they should absolutely do it, because they're beholden to the shareholders, right? Their job is to get best value to the shareholders. In this case, it's a private party deal, right? They're not actually talking to the shareholders, it's just selling assets. So
okay. I'm sorry I made a face while you're talking. I was looking through the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. And Special Nick, shout out to Special Nick from Xbox Era, who's in the chat. Being messy, when I said Rand's a smart guy, he said Rand is not smart. These two these two guys are always at each other and giving each other a hard time. I love it. It's so great, because you know what? Nick usually wins. I love you, Rand. No, it's great. They're so hilarious. And Nick, thanks for reaching out to me last night. I had such a good time chilling with you. Like, we need to do that more often. He's so cool. And then someone's got like, Nick's not cool. But
yeah, where's Rand? Nick's not cool.
T1000 Whisperer, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. He wrote earlier, this video just popped up on my YouTube page and it automatically made my day. Bro, thank you so much. And I know Hargeet and Skullsy appreciate it. If you're just joining us, this is the XNC podcast. We have over 800 people watching live. I'm here with Hargeet Chani of Game On Daily. Wow, that sounds so cool to say that. And I've got Skullsy from his Skullsy TV YouTube channel. He's got over 25,000 subscribers, and he is a Bethesda junkie and a Bethesda expert, because he dives in to all that information. So if you want to know the ins and outs of Vasco and how tall he is and what his ninth appendage does, check out his videos. The link is in the description. Also, you can follow Hargeet by going to Game On Daily and seeing where they post his information and his content. But let me grab a couple supers here. We're going to jump off the Embracer Group thing and kind of move on to the other news here, but I've got a couple supers here. Danny Passion Official with the $2 says, if I knew I would get a loan to buy them for $500 million. Yeah, well, let's buy him. JJ, thank you so much for the 5. Says skooma for everyone. Glad to see Skullsy on the XNC main stage.
Yes, nice. Skooma for everybody, and cheese for everybody too, for Gorath fans.
Yeah. And can I have your sweet roll, please?
No, my sweet rolls are for me.
We were talking on a couple shows ago, Skullsy, about how we're gonna get into Starfield in a minute, but how Bethesda's games are just they're buggy, but they do so much more than most games. Like, you have so much freedom and you have so much immersion that you can do. Like, they're so well made. And then we kind of laughed at, but yet again, you could put a bucket on a guy's head and rob his whole store. So I can't wait. We're going to get into Starfield in a moment. Frank Morissette, thank you so much for the Canadian 13.99, says, interesting that People Can Fly, the guys that made Outriders, the people that made Outriders, are not included in this deal since there's also a PCF in Montreal, Chicago. Perhaps it's a strip down for Square Enix for a Sony purchase. Wow, Frank's saying the same thing I was thinking. I didn't bring in Outriders because they weren't mentioned. I don't know where they fit in. He's right. It is kind of a question. Hargy, do you know where People Can Fly fit into this? I think they just worked with Square Enix as a publisher.
Yeah, I don't think they're owned by Square.
They're just a developer, and Square Enix came in and said, we'll publish your Outriders game. So that's where that sits. Flame with the $5 says, remember, acquisition only good when Xbox is doing it. Also, Embracer has 124 studios. Jeez, tap dancing rice. I kind of censored that a little bit. He says, Monopoly much? There is a great discussion about Monopoly on my XC podcast a couple weeks ago with Hogue. He corrects me. Really great. I have timestamps, so go check it out later. Flush Jackson, thank you so much for the 20. We're almost ready to move on. He says, sidebar, may the 4th be with everyone this week. That's in 2 days, May the 4th. And Bottom A sends a $99 or 99-cent super chat. Thank you, buddy. And one more. I just saw it roll in, Risking for the Biscuit. It's a great guy. He's one of my many favorite Australians in the gaming scene. He says, Harriet to Chains into house, sup chat. Harriet to Chains, is that what he calls you?
So this is a funny story. It's essentially, Fonz was taking his stuff from one computer to another, and when he did that, it auto-corrected my name in the banner that goes across for all the supporters, and it made me Harriet Chains.
Harriet Chains. Yeah, that's great.
So so he eventually fixed it, and Riskit just ran with it. So.
Yeah, Ariskit's a pretty funny guy. All right. So Embracer, we kind of talked about what's going on, but like I said, it'll be okay. We'll still get those games. Keep your hands off Sony. We just want to play some games, all right? There was a big announcement on Saturday that, well, it's kind of something that actually we'd heard, like Special Nick and had heard this. I had heard it. Dealer heard it, that a year ago, Forza Motorsport, the 8th in the series, has an Xbox One version, and people are flipping out, Skolzy. I don't know if you're into the racing games or if you're into the whole cross-generation or next-gen only discussion, but the setup is that somebody has some sort of proof with a screenshot that an Xbox One version of the next-gen only Forza Motorsport exists. Doom and gloom ensues. Here comes the dark clouds. Take us through it.
So yeah, the dark clouds came rolling in when somebody on Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit claimed that they were getting tired of hearing that it's next gen only, Forza Motorsport. So they apparently verified a couple leaked images of the game running on the Xbox One with the moderators over there. And I do know a couple of the moderators over there, and they tend to have a pretty strict verification process. All due respect, they do get stuff wrong sometimes, but I would imagine it would be kind of hard to fake something like this specifically, or at least fake it in a way that would be able to persuade someone that it's legit. So I think we should probably take this with less of a grain of salt than we normally do. And in terms of the cross generation, this late into the game, it seems kind of weird, but I wouldn't put it past them, especially if they have the analytics to prove that there is an interest for this game on the Xbox One. And another thing we got to keep in mind is there's still a shortage of these consoles. The Xbox Series X has been getting more and more stock now in stores like Best Buy and stuff like that. But the PS5 and even going to GPUs, graphics cards, it seems like these things for a while now have been kind of hard to get. Thankfully, that's finally getting fixed. But that also, I think, would be a great contributing factor in favor of this leak, suggesting that it might be true. I'm always all for more people being able to have access to a game. That's just the gamer in me wants everyone to play whatever they want, no matter what system they have. But then the developer in me says that crossplay does inherently hold back the full potential of a title, depending on the handle the development. We saw this with Cyberpunk 2077, for example. I mean, there's some obvious big issues with the earlier generation version, but at the same time, who knows what stuff they could have put into the final game if it was focused on next gen technology only. Maybe a lot of that cut content wouldn't have been as cut, so it's
Good
like
point.
a give and take, right? You get more people playing your game, but then at what cost did that come at? However, with racing games, I feel that if they get the technology right, even racing games on last generation, even racing games on the Xbox 360 looked good. So racing games are one of those things to where if they can continue to improve the performance and the engine and everything else, that you might still be able to get away with doing cross-gen more so than you could with Cyberpunk, for example.
Wow, that's really well said, especially how amazing racing games have looked for like the past 15 years. You nailed it. And on the heels of that, Digital Foundry just said a few days before this article started breaking across the internet, they said that the Forza Tech engine with Forza Horizon 5, even though it's on the Xbox One, it still screams amazing on the Xbox Series X and on PC. So that kind of like blows that out of the water. I see some people in the chat like, who cares if it's on Xbox One? No big deal. What does it hurt? And then I see some people saying, we need to retire it as soon as possible. And I hear both those a lot. But there is one detail that moots this whole conversation. But Hargeet, I got to hear what you think about this whole we believe in generations, but those guys don't believe it. Like, what's going on with it with Forza Motorsport?
Look, they like Xbox came out and said 1 to 2 years, right? 1 to 2 years. So this is still the second year, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they're going to try to support Xbox One with some of these games. And maybe they're testing the waters, right? To see, hey, we've done all this stuff. Is it scalable back? Can it work on an Xbox One, right? I'm sure it works on One X, right? But can it work on the Xbox One? And if it can, okay, let's give a scaled back version out to the Xbox. But there's another potential, right? Is that this could be like they do with the Flight Sim. You could just cloud it, right? And say this is available on Xbox One, but it's available through cloud, and it would be a 1080p, right? Because that's what they do with xCloud. But I wouldn't put it past them to say, if it works, go ahead, right? Why not put it on Xbox One? Make it available to them. The 1 to 2 year period does come to an end, right? But it's at November. These usually come out in the September timeframe, right? So my guess is, it could be this would be the last game that they put out that's cross-gen. It's a possibility, as long as it doesn't hurt what they're doing, or like they've taken years now to sort of see if they can push their engine even further, right? As long as they don't have to scale those things back on the Series S and X, I'd say go for it. I don't see the issue.
So here's what I mean when I say that this whole point could be moot, because I am on the side that I don't think the Xbox One version is even launching. I think they're using it for testing purposes only, testing the water or just seeing what the engine could do with the testers. But here's a quote directly from Asaki, who leads Turn 10. He says, I'm going to paraphrase this and read it because I don't want to put anybody to sleep. But if you're here enjoying the show, thank you so much. And if you think Hargeet and Skullsy are doing an amazing job, show your support by hitting the like button. I want to get that up to 500. We have over 800 people who are checking out the show. You guys are awesome. And you power it. You make it all worthwhile and make it all possible. But here's what he said. He said the old Forza Motorsport games updated the physics calculation of the tires 60 times per second. So most of those games ran at 60. So they had the physics model at 60 cycles per second. Now the new Forza Motorsport has 8 points of contact instead of a single point of contact on the tire, 360 times per second. Now that tells me right there, 50 times more detail than before, he says. That tells me right there that whatever they built for the physics, the way the cars will feel and handle, is exclusively next generation. Meaning, if you were doing that, I don't think Turn 10 is building a one contact tire version, but they could for Xbox. So I think if you're going to see an Xbox One version, that you're going to find out there are going to be some subtle physics details that you probably wouldn't notice if you're playing on Xbox One. It would feel great, just like Forza does. Forza is like some of the best feeling racing games. So that I just want to drive that point home. I think next generation only is, if you're getting the game on Series S, X, or PC, you're getting its full potential. I think that's just how it goes. So that's what's going on with Forza Motorsport. I've got Lord Starkiller with a $10. Thank you, buddy. He says, for the panel, that's you guys. He says, how much of the RDNA 2 features do you think Starfield will use? Skullsy, speculate. What kind of RDNA 2? I don't know if you know these off the top of your head. I've talked about it a lot of times. You can defer if you want to. It's like technical question.
Okay.
How much?
Yeah, no. So Todd Howard and Bethesda kind of touched on this. They said that their Radiant AI technology is evolving with Starfield and with Creation Engine 2. And to summarize this in a quick way, because I could probably go into such micro detail. I can talk on this topic for an hour, but essentially a lot of people, you kind of touched on it earlier, Colt, when you said people are worried it might be like No Man's Sky. Bethesda has utilized procedural generation in unique ways over the years in terms of things such as just creating the models for the flora in the game for the different plants and allowing an AI to place that realistically, to the generation of new quests and new content, which we saw in like Skyrim and stuff like that, to where you can go to an inn and there'll be a generated note telling you kill bandit leader and so or go do this. So that technology has evolved for Starfield, and I think it's evolved in multiple ways. And essentially what I think we'll see from this technology specifically is it's space, right? Space is a unique setting. Not only do you have multiple different planets with their own biomes, their own settlements, but each planet in itself is supposed to be this huge place. So I don't think Bethesda is going to do it kind of like The Outer Worlds, and this is no disrespect to that game. I love that game, but I don't think it's going to be to where there's only small playable areas on each planet. I think that this Radiant technology is actually going to fill in the missing parts of the planet. So, well, yes, if you go outside the main handcrafted player areas on a planet in Starfield, it will be noticeably more barren, but the Radiant AI technology will fill these things in with perhaps randomly generated dungeons, randomly generated points of interest to scavenge, to explore. And I think that they're going to do it in such a way that it'll be almost hard to differentiate the difference between the handcrafted content and some of this Radiant AI content as well. I think that's what Todd Howard was hinting towards in terms of how this technology has evolved for them in a unique way. And it's a big running technology. It even governs the way that the NPCs will react to the player, react to each other, and react to other things. So I think that we're going to be seeing some interesting stuff in terms of from Starfield, in terms of this Radiant AI, in terms of this procedural generation, but it won't be like No Man's Sky. It'll be a blend of handcrafted and the AI just assisting the handcrafted world to have more content in it. I think it's going to be a very interesting window into the future of not only Bethesda games, but perhaps just how procedural generation in gaming can be utilized in unique ways.
Yeah, because Fallout 4 sort of used a little bit of that. Like that was like a precursor for some generated content, and then most of it was handcrafted. So if you're looking at like what RDNA 2 features, I think mostly what you're going to see, Skullsy explains this pretty well, is that you're going to see the hardware be able to do this stuff. You've got an SSD, so stuff be able to load in, because you're not going to, he's right, because Outer Worlds has these really cool, tiny little, you land on a planet and you only get like this 2 backyards kind of can mess around in. So just the nature of the hardware is just more powerful, just be able to do more, and they don't have to build it for Jaguar chips. And I saw a dealer in the chat who would have a lot to say about the Creation Engine. It's an overhauled Creation Engine 2, and they kind of have to work within the constraints, but that can be sort of a good thing, right, Hargeet? Because for years, Bethesda's been working with the Creation Engine and evolving it and bringing it up into different versions, and they know what they can do. And sometimes if you make the best out of what you have, you can create some really great things. Like when I create something, if I do the best I can with the tools I know how to use, or like if I know how to make something in a certain way and I really exploit that, you can make something amazing. But if you have if you give them Unreal Engine 5, they might be like, ah! So what do you think? How do you think the hardware is going to deal with Starfield? So we're going to dig into Starfield a little more in a minute.
Yeah, this is all very, like, it's an interesting mix of potentials, right? So we know the history, right? When Morrowind was being made, they actually worked with the Xbox team to make that happen, right? And then with Oblivion, Skyrim, they were helping them with what should the hardware have, things like that, right? So it could be very well used, but there's also the headache of like nobody's using them, so it could just be that the platforms aren't ready. And I forget RDNA 2. I don't think they're even using RDNA 1. It's all been like the same thing, just brute forcing it. I think there's a bit of RDNA 1 being utilized. And it's both consoles. I don't want to like say that it's just Xbox. It's both consoles really aren't fully taking advantage of these new capabilities. When we're saying teraflops aren't the same, that was because these additional capabilities make the teraflops not the same, and we're really not just utilizing them yet. It could be that, hey, you know what? This was ready last year, and they took the year to do that, to spend time bug fixing and make it run with all the capabilities of the Series S and X, right? To get that game to work as well as it can, especially on the Series S, right? To make sure it runs really, really well on that box, right? So it could be that they are going to take advantage of it. Probably not all of it. That's my guess, right? There's on top of that, there's FSR, which I don't know if they're going to take advantage of that either, but there are
they could. I mean,
they could.
Deathloop is already planning on taking advantage of that when it launches on the Xbox this summer or this fall. So that's a good point, Hargeet. Yeah. FSR, it would be a major thing where if Digital Foundry dives in this thing and says, well, it looks like it's close to 4K. We're trying to do the pixel count. We're scared. That's going to be an interesting thing.
I'm hoping they are doing that, right? Because then you could potentially see at least a 60 FPS, 1440 or 1200 FSR up.
Sharp image. Yep.
With ray tracing. It's a possibility if they can take advantage of all those features, but I don't know if they're ready. And that's been the headache, right? If the platforms are ready to do it, then why isn't everybody doing it? But that is kind of the headache, right? So, and maybe, they're like, this is our showcase. We got Forza and we got this. We're making that happen. It's out of band. We're not making it available to everybody, but we are going to make it. It's a possibility, right? But that is something that's interesting. It's been a long time. I think it's time that they started getting those toolings in so that they can actually take advantage of this stuff. So it would be great to see, right? But my feeling, and just my gut feeling, I don't know that they will. I think they'll get some, not all the features that are already in it too. I don't think they will.
Yeah, that's a really good answer, because I think what we're going to notice when the game launches is your 60 FPS in an open, explorable space world, right? The universe. 60 FPS, the visuals will be sharp. We're going to talk about how the game is probably going to look in a moment. But I think it's just going to be so important that we're going to be playing a big, massive AAA Western RPG at 60 FPS on a console, which, last generation, not happening. Shout out to Meat Puppet 007 who joined the channel. Welcome to Early Access. You'll get a message on the community tab. Just trying to think of this off the top of my head. When I put a video out, I usually build my videos in the evening and then put them out the next morning. And so you'll get a chance to check those out and comment first. Say first. First with a thumbs up emoji. But you also get custom emojis and stuff like that. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much, Meat Puppet. Let's see. Let me go back down here. We've got... I almost read that one again. This is great. Meat Puppet left a super and says, thanks for catching my channel membership. Keep up the good work. And Cody P with the troll face says, happy to see my boy Skullsy getting the support. Shout out to you, my man. And Skullsy's YouTube channel, as I said, 25,000 subs. He's in the description. You just move down there, click the link, post it get in another tab. Hit the subscribe button for him. If you're here and you're new and you haven't subscribed, you can subscribe to this show as well on this channel. I do weekly videos and do this show and get people like Hargeet Shawnee of Game On Daily and Skullsy from Skullsy TV on YouTube. It's really good to have you guys on. If you're having a good time, hit the like button. We are at 350 likes, over 850 people watching. Show your support. Let's get that up to 500, and then my face will fall off. It'll be great. Starfield, as we were talking about, it was a perfect segue in. The super chat kind of got us really primed and ready to talk about Starfield. But this former developer who left, it's classic, right? Like he packs his duffel bag and he says, you know what? I'm not working here anymore, but I've got something to say, right? He knocks over a coffee mug and says, I'm out of here. Here's what he said. Some of this is kind of paraphrased, and I know that Skullsy has dove into this, but he says the engine is hard to work with, the Creation Engine 2. He says there's so much content that they might have to cut some of it for launch because the game is so big. He also said the game is looking good and the shooting feels all right. Shooting feels all right. We haven't seen combat yet. He says he rather bluntly said the engine is a piece of crap and flying is terrible at the moment because it's not fun. However, he did sing the praises of his lighting and graphics and said they're not up to par. They're not yet up to par with Horizon Forbidden West. It's several months before Starfield is expected to release, so all of that could change. Skullsy, I know you clocked this. I'm not mad at the guy. We've seen this before. Dev said this about Halo. But Skullsy, how did you take this information?
At first I didn't believe it because I'm a writer for Once Lost Games who are working on the Wayward Realms, so I don't have a ton of experience in game development, but I know how stuff works. And when you leave a company, you magically can't just start talking about all their secrets. That seems to be what this person believed, because they said that in a comment to them. Someone said, "Hey, you're gonna get sued. You're breaking NDA." They said, "I quit last week. I'm not under NDA." And then suddenly all their comments are deleted because they deleted their account. So they broke NDA. And an interesting thing is, I didn't believe this at first until Jason Schreier jumped in to verify it, because the guy was saying he worked at Bethesda last week, or the girl, I'm not sure who or what they are, but Heavy, sure, I think was their account name, said that they quit Bethesda last week. However, over the last couple of years, they've been sharing their indie game, their indie dev studio, which is them and just like 3 other people, and they've been sharing their project and their updates on their project. And generally, you don't get to work on a side project and market it when you're contracted by a AAA game developer. And on top of that, that you also just gave yourself completely away to Bethesda and their lawyers as to who you are, because your company's small. And now you just basically associated that with your leak. So until Jason stepped in, I didn't believe it for many reasons, because of that, because of the indie dev thing, and also just because of this the audacity for someone to not only not understand how NDAs work, but just to say all this stuff publicly after a week of leaving a company. But apparently, according to Jason Schreier, it's legit. So I have to. He's a trusted insider for the most part. He's been right about Bethesda stuff in the past. So I have to give this, maybe not 100% confirmed everything he said, but at least it has a lot more weight to it. There's a couple other things he said. I think he said that Starfield is entering a beta this summer, and that also doesn't add up to me. Usually betas aren't months before the game launches or during the same time period when you reveal the game
unless there's like an online thing that they need to test server load and stuff, right? I gotta pause you right there. Chat, if you're watching this show, Skullsy here he's a rare creature in the wild. He's not been blocked by Jason Schreier. So feast your eyes upon the amazing sight that you're seeing. Skullsy has actually been able to chat with him, which we'll get into in the next topic. I don't want to spoil that, but I just wanted to say, like, if you're nature watching, you just saw a very rare creature, hang out on the show. But anyway, so this developer supposedly. So are you thinking this developer did break NDA, like they're a legit person they blasted themselves?
Yeah, they screw them. They totally. They outed themselves. They identify themselves, and
that's not normal practice, though, is it, Skullsy? Like when you work at a studio for 6 months or a year or longer, like you when you walk out, that you can't say that. So what's how's that happen?
Well, I mean, I hate to speculate on the person's intelligence, but really one of the biggest factors would be you're either ignorant of how NDAs worked and you just kind of breezed through it and didn't take it seriously, and you just made your own assumptions as to how they work, and then you messed yourself up like they did, or they just thought they could get away with it. I had a third theory, which is possible, that I discussed with people on my Discord, that maybe this is just a master level troll, because you'd be surprised what kinds of things people can fake in terms of verification. I know the Reset Era moderator said that they were able to verify this person worked at Bethesda at some point, and same with Jason Schreier, but people can really fake some pretty believable things in terms of verification. So I'm wondering if perhaps the third rare spawn option is that this person just fooled everybody and just wants to talk crap about Starfield. But that doesn't seem like, none of this seems likely. It's such a strange leak. So I just got to go towards the most concrete information in this. Jason and Reset Era said the person's legit to some capacity. So I have to kind of just assume that they are ignorant of how NDAs worked And the second Jason said you're probably going to get lawyers sent after you, they probably nuked their account over there, because it's all that stuff for the most part's gone now. Their account is deleted user. But I mean, the damage is done. They gave Bethesda the information. They gave Bethesda when they last worked there, and they gave Bethesda their small indie company that consists of 3 developers or something. So yeah, they broke NDA, and they're probably going to feel it if they're not feeling it already. So I hope it was worth.
I mean, we've seen people like laser themselves from social media and just crawl into a hole for 2 weeks and then emerge victorious. But Special Nick's in the chat saying that the Reset Era staff have been fooled before many times. He says. So you're right. You're both right. Like, it could be an elaborate thing to kind of get people, I don't know, to get them on the opposite end of hype. I'm going to ask you, Hargeet, about one of the first couple statements here. This developer says that, well, let's not talk about the engine's hard to work with. We already kind of talked about that, right? But he says they might have to cut content for launch because the game is so big. Yep. Now, that might worry people, but what do you think is read between the lines on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, look, they were ambitious. They have a lot of content. That's a good thing, right? That might mean there's DLC that's coming later that'll fill things in. It just means that there's so much that they won't be able to have all of that in when they launch. It's not going to delay launch. They're going to have launch, but it won't have everything baked. So they're just going to pull it out, right? So there'll be some things that just aren't there, some side missions, some quests just won't be there. That's fair. That's fine. It happens. I like that they're ambitious and they have a lot of stuff, right? And that's how like Skyrim was. It just kept going. There's just so much stuff, right? And that's a good thing. So you want that kind of thing.
You'll never reach the end,
right? Yeah, exactly. And so and that just means that, hey, they actually already have DLCs awaiting to be released, right? Because they have that work ahead of them to get that content that they're gonna have to like pull to get into release. So I don't see that as a bad thing. I think that's a normal Bethesda Game Studios thing. They always have a lot of stuff in their games, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Fair enough. What about the shooting? Feels all right. Now let's dive into this. Skullsy, because I'll just preface it by saying Machine Games helped teach Bethesda in Fallout 4 to bring that shooting up to modern times, and I have a kind of a strange opinion. I like the way the shooting feels. Mostly, I really like the way the shooting feels in Fallout 4. I thought they made great strides. I thought it felt just about as modern as you can get in a game like that. So what are you thinking when they say the shooting feels all right? What are you expecting?
That's another red flag to me. They did specify, I think, in their final post before they disappeared from the Earth realm forever with their leaks, but they said it's their personal preference. But the thing is, like you said, Fallout 3. Well, I love the game. The shooting in it was pretty shaky, but Fallout 4 really impressed me, and that carries over into Fallout 76, because also with Fallout 76, id Studios helped them try to get the engine better running for an online game. They tried to hybridize the creation engine with id Tech, and they also helped with the shooting. So the fact that Starfield, a game that comes after both of these titles, after Fallout 4, after Fallout 76, the fact that it wouldn't at least have the same quality of shooting as these games wouldn't make sense to me. So the only thing I could maybe think of is they didn't improve upon the shooting enough to make this person feel satisfied with it. Maybe they didn't go into the cover system and allow a better like baked in cover system where like in Call of Duty and stuff you can duck down, aim, and you automatically pop up and stuff like that. Maybe they didn't do those types of quality of life things, but even still I think that it would probably still feel good if it was like Fallout 4. So I just have to chalk it up as this person's personal preference, and it seems like they're a little jaded at Bethesda just based on the entire rhetoric of all their posts. So that probably plays.
I mean, who doesn't leave their job and then just put everybody on blast and burn the bridges, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Jeez.
I mean, we saw it, like I said, with Halo, where the guy was like, it's not going to be this masterpiece. It looks pretty good, and then we're like, what? And then the game comes out and looks pretty good, right? I mean, it's not a masterpiece, but it was really good. So I don't know. It's like what you said. It seems reasonable. Maybe it's been 5 years since Fallout, right? 5 or 6 since Fallout 4. So you'd expect how much of a evolution in the shooting? How much better can it be? Maybe it was only this much better instead of that much better. But that's really well said. Shout out to Crazy Louie and Titan Drago in the chat. Yeah, you guys are great. Hit the like button if you have a good time. We have 900 people here watching. We are talking about Starfield, and we're digging into the nitty gritty. You know what? I'm going to take back that word. That's somebody super old, and I'm not old. I'm just very old. We're digging into the details of what's going on with Starfield. The lighting and graphics, they were singing the praises of the lighting and graphics. This is a great one for Hargeet, but they are not yet up to par with Horizon Forbidden West. Hargeet, how much do your feelings hurt right now from hearing that?
Look, I'm the one who put out the video that I don't care about the bloody graphics. Give me the game, make the game playable, make the game fun. The game loop has to be good. I don't care about the graphics. It's good if they're great. That's awesome, right? But if it's content versus spend time making the lighting better, please do the content. I don't care about the lighting. I would much rather have more content, enjoy the game more, because I'm not.
I'll make my own lighting
about the lighting. I just am not. Okay, if the foliage doesn't move correctly, I don't care. I'm not looking at the foliage. I'm playing the bloody game. Give me the content. I would always.
What if the fruit doesn't move though, bro?
Or the shooting of the fruit doesn't look right. The physics. I don't care. Like, it's so irrelevant. Give me the content, right? So I'm on the opposite side of what most people like. They want the fancy graphics. That's great. I don't. I would much rather do what they're saying. They have too much content for the game. Yep, that's what I would rather they spend the time on. Give me the content, because that gives me more fun in the game itself, right? So that's what I would look for. So is it possible that the graphics aren't up to the par, or up to the level of Horizon? It's possible. But look, Sony,
yeah, I think so.
Sony does that, right? That is their bread and butter. The games have to have a quality bar of how they look, right? Fine. Mm-hmm. That's their thing, right? Versus, Bethesda, have the games always looked the best? Well, okay, they look good, but they're not the most stunning games. But dude, they play so well. They're so much fun. That's the whole point. You get lost.
Yeah,
in the world. That's the point.
There was many ugly things of Fallout 4, but I love the game so much. And Hargeet is such a proponent. He will slap the controller out of your hand if you try to go to photo mode. He's like, play the dang game. And actually, you've literally done that to Gaz and I. We were in a game. We kept going into photo mode and flying the camera around. And he was like, oh my gosh, you two. Quit putting on your tiaras and let's play the game.
So
Skullsy, you're a sucker for photo mode, right? Sucker for graphics.
If the graphics are good, yeah, I like to do it. But I'm one of the people that installs all the mods for Skyrim and make it look photorealistic. And then most of my time is taking pictures and stuff. So yeah, I'm in that field.
Yeah. I'm not.
You're a fraud. No, it's so funny. I don't know. It's so funny.
People have their own preferences. That's fair, right?
Yeah. Just don't tell your preference to Hargeet, because he'll elbow drop you. Let me read some supers. I'm going to read some supers, and our next subject is to talk about Skullsy has some, I'm just going to say leaks. Okay. He had some information he's hearing. He portrayed it. But we're going to get into how he set it up and everything. I want to read some of these super chats, because this is like a excellent conversation, and there's some gems in here and some great hopes and dreams. So let me get into those. Don CJG, thank you so much for the 449 pound super chat. Says, yo, Cole, I'm deep in a fever and woke up thinking about XNC podcasts over and over. The fever dream brought me here. Great to catch the show live at 2 a.m. Man, that's awesome. I cannot pick up my phone in the middle of the night, or I'll just stay on it. I'll just get in a thing with Twitter. Lord Starkiller, thank you so much for the $10. Says, since Sony is still selling PS4, sorry. Since Sony's still selling PS4s, no problem if Forza Motorsport is playable on X1. Agree with Hargeet about using the cloud to play Forza Motorsport on Xbox One. Yes, very good point. Yodana Quezada, he sent out an auto-tune Hargeet Chani, which I can't. If I had Gaz here, we'd have him sing Hargeet Chani in auto-tune. That is like a staple of Gaz when he's on his shows. DCRU Seeds, thank you so much for the 40-pound super chat. He's got a super chat here in orange. The hotness. He says, just wanted to make sure everyone knows only 6 more months till Starfield. Love the podcast, brother. Thank you so much, Seeds, for doing that. And Rich Meringue sends a $20 super chat and join the channel membership. Thank you for joining the channel. You'll get early access. Also, I forgot to say, you will get an opportunity to be picked for merch every month. I pick somebody from the channel membership or Patreon, and I send a link to the store, and you can pick anything you want, like this XNC podcast shirt. I've got one with the controllers on it. I've got ones with a bunch of game weapons, like swords and guns from your favorite games. Pretty cool stuff because I'm a graphic designer, so I'm like, I want to make stuff that people can wear and really enjoy. So thank you so much. Yo, I'm a Moon also joined the channel membership. And one more, Biff Rinaldi. Love his name. I say it every week. Biff Rinaldi, you're awesome. Vacation scheduled for Starfield release. Take work off. Call in sick. We were going to be fully diving into it. Skullsy, it is now time to talk about these leaks and reactions. Before we list the things that you put in this Twitter post, I want you to tell people like how you prefaced it and how you ended the tweet with the listing. Take the reins.
Yeah, this is something that apparently some gaming websites, I don't want to name names, but they cherry picked what to say. I said, essentially, I was very clear from the start with all this. I love rumors. I love speculating. And I hear some things sometimes. And even if they're not something I can verify is true, I think it's fun to share with people to speculate. So when I first posted these rumors, the very first tweet that ever brought this into existence, it walked into reality with the information alongside it. It says, Bethesda stuff I'm hearing from an anonymous source. Please take this with a grain of salt. Don't claim it as an inside statement from me or a leak. And then I even end a tweet by saying, remember, these are from a credible anonymous source, but I haven't personally been able to verify any of this information yet. These are not my inside statements. I am just reporting on what I hear. And to preface that bit a little bit, this person has given me stuff in the past that ended up being true. So they kind of proven to me that they're privy to some of this information. However, in regards to this specific thing, they're able to give me documents that made it seem like it could be legit, but I kind of have a high expectation when it comes to verifying this stuff. So I didn't want to say it's verified. I didn't consider it verified, but I considered it interesting to discuss because some of these rumors actually coincide with other stuff that people have heard before.
Okay. So there's a list of things that Skullsy listed in this tweet. Like, he did a really good job setting up. I am not an insider, right? And shout out to Gaming Addict, who just dropped super. He says, congrats on your Seattle trip at Colteastwood. If we get a chance, we got a lot to talk about. I might take some questions or kind of explain my trip a little bit here on the show. I'm not sure, but shout out to over 900 people watching. We're 60 likes away from 500. If you're enjoying the show, move the chat out of the way, hit the like button, come on back. We're still here. We'll wait for you. I'll wait. Okay, I'm back. I appreciate you guys. Let me look at what some of the things. We're going to go through each one, give Skullsy a chance to explain where he thinks that is, or the legitimacy of the game and the project, and what we think as a group here in an audience of what that is. The first thing is a PvP PvE game from Roundhouse Studios. Now, this is one of the smaller studios in the ZeniMax Bethesda team. What's going on with this PvP PvE game?
So this one seemed like it could be the most credible one of this list because a couple other insiders said they've heard similar stuff, and everyone was just as wary to not mention too much about this. And normally when people are a little iffy about giving more exact details, it tends to lend a little bit more credibility to the leak. I was given a bit more information following this that I could share, that this title is supposedly a Marvel IP, a Marvel license based on something within the Marvel universe. And Roundhouse is a studio that's been quiet for a long time anyway, so clearly they're working on something. And it seems like almost every other Bethesda studio is working on some kind of separate project. A lot of these projects seem to be something unique, something creative, or something to push the bar a little bit. So I wouldn't be too surprised if this particular part of this leak was true. But yeah, it's something based in the Marvel universe, and I think people would be excited about it if this thing was true. It kind of goes along the same lines as some games that we've been seeing recently that have been met with some success.
So how are you feeling about a Marvel Roundhouse game? You think that this is something that's possible that they're working on, or is it one of those things that Jason said, I looked into it?
Well, Jason, I got an updated statement from him. He said that his source wasn't able to say the entire list was crap. They just knew a couple items on that list was not true. So I feel like maybe Jason could have been a little bit more specific with that in their original in their original Reset Era post, instead of me having to message him personally to get the information and get permission from a statement about all that. So apparently that doesn't mean that all of this or some of this could be true, just because not all of it is debunked. But usually when you come with big lists like this, some of it is true, some of it is bloated information thrown in there to throw people off. That tends to be how this kind of stuff goes. But in terms of this Roundhouse IP, I think this is probably one of the most solid pieces of information from this rumor list. I would put the most faith in this particular one, alongside a couple other ones that we'll get into here in a few minutes, I'm sure.
Okay. So what else? What is Roundhouse made so people can kind of gauge what caliber or what capability Roundhouse has? Because they're a smaller studio. I think they're like 80 people or something. If I don't remember.
Yeah, they're definitely smaller. They've made some games similar to what we'd expect from Bethesda. I believe, I have to verify this live on the air, but I believe they made a game called Rune, which is similar to the setting of Bethesda, of Skyrim. And there's like a whole bunch of controversy. Yes, it was Rune. A whole bunch of controversy over Rune 2, because Bethesda supposedly killed Rune 2 when they bought it. Like they canceled the project and did a whole bunch of stuff that made the Rune community get a little bit, mad, because naturally if you're hyped for this game and other company buys game and cancels it, that's gonna get that fan base mad. But ever since then, they've been basically quiet. So they would either have to have been working in an entire support studio capacity this entire time, or they're working on something unique like what this title could be. And I would think that with all the talented developers at Roundhouse, that they're probably doing something more than just support work. They're probably working on something, and I kind of have the feeling it is this IP here, this PvE game. Okay.
That's new to me when I heard it, and Special Nick in the chat said that you guys talked in DMs about this listing, and Xbox Era covered this on their podcast on Saturday. So go check that out on their channel as well. And I know that you've made content based on some of this as well. You could, and I have to set for the audience, like Skullsy took a lot of heat from this, and that's why I asked him before the show. I want you to tell people what you wrote, because you deleted the tweet and then kind of corrected things later. But he started out, because when I read it, this is exactly how I read it in my mind. I'm not an insider. This is just what I'm hearing. But if you'd like to hear some, if you like to hear some leaks, like here's what I'm hearing from my source. None of it's confirmed. By the way, take this with a grain of salt, because none of this is confirmed and I'm not an insider. That's how I read the tweet. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, what the heck, man? Why are people being so rude? Stop it. Just stop it. and I gotta make sure I kind of get Hargy pulled into this, because this could be like the spotlight on Skullsy while we talk about this, but I'll also kind of defer to Hargy as we get into this. The next thing that you said was that you had heard that Elder Scrolls 6 is coming for a target release date in 25 or 2026, which is something else I had said in videos based off of just doing basic math, that it's gonna take this long for the team to do this. By the time the team builds Elder Scrolls 6, it's gonna be 25, 2026 for the year. Hargy, we talk about this so much. We talk about how games used to take 2 or 3 years to build, even the big AAAs. How's Skullsy sitting on this information that Elder Scrolls 6 comes out in 2025 at the earliest?
I mean, that'd be pretty good, actually. I mean, considering they're still working on Starfield, right? So you're saying that would be 3 years. That would be awesome, right? I don't believe it, but that would be awesome. So if they've started the work already, maybe they've been working on it for 2-3 years now, and okay, they kind of overlapped, and Starfield's kind of finishing up on some parts, and Elder Scrolls has already started up. That's cool, right? So, but yeah, my expectation is 5 to 6 years, pretty much a guarantee. It's going to take a long time. So if they've already started, that's a great thing, right? So if it can come out 3 years later, that's fantastic. But that's what I've been seeing. Yeah. It just takes so freaking long for games to come out now.
And it's the gamer's fault, right, Hargy? They want that photo mode. When they click it, it looks amazing.
Yeah. Well, look, making everything top notch does take time, right?
Yeah.
So I won't fault Bethesda though, because they actually put content in the game, right? Skyrim is still being played, right? Because it has so much content, and it was extensible. You could add so many mods to it, and so there's this content, right? And so that's a fair way to look at it. Hey, it might take time, but you're getting a lot of game, right? You're getting a lot of game, right? So it might be a fair trade-off there. But a lot of games come out and they're like 20-hour campaign, and it took 6 years, and you're like, really? Like Mass Effect, how long were those? How long were those games? How long did it take between those? Like we got that in a generation.
That's crazy,
right? Like,
and they're some of the biggest things. Yeah,
and they're like the best. They're like so good, right? And like, come on.
Well, and I know we have those discussions. Things take way longer, but games have never been bigger and more expansive and looked more amazing. What about this political system, Skullsy? What's the merit to that? What are you hearing? Is it reliable? Like, what do you? All I have written here is there's a political system in Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah, so essentially the information I was passed was that the Elder Scrolls 6 will have a political system, and there'll be different like noble factions, and the marriage will actually matter in terms of this noble faction dynamic. Now, as far as the credibility of this particular statement, this one I couldn't verify that much at all. It just happened to be included with these other things. So in terms of the validity of this, it could be possible, because I would imagine that Starfield's in the final testing phases. They're basically polishing it up and getting it ready for launch. So I would imagine that they are at least in the early planning stages of TED 6, deciding what main gameplay mechanics they want to have in a game. I call it the game developer onion. You start in the center of the onion with the core gameplay mechanics you have to have in the game in order for it to be the game you want to make. And then as the layers progress, you start adding in those other like more interesting things. This seems like this would be the core of the onion to me. Like if they want the faction system to be such a main dynamic in the game, that they would also have different things playing off of that faction system, like marriages that matter in terms of what families you're aligned with and what families you aren't aligned with because you married their enemies or
rival.
Whatever term is.
Yeah.
So I think that this is possible. It seems like it's the direction they're going, because factions are taking more of a focus in Bethesda games recently. Skyrim, we had the Civil War, and then Fallout 4, we had the endings of the game inherently tied to your choice of faction alignment. Starfield, they've talked about factions a lot, so I could kind of see something like this being plausible for sure. I just can't verify or give much concrete support to these particular test statements. But in terms of the release date, I mean, that sounds like it would line up with what I would think in terms of the lesser end of how long I think it would take them to get this game out, especially if they want Starfield DLC and stuff like that. I would imagine test 6 maybe 2026 or 2027, but we don't know what the different dynamic will be with the Microsoft partnership. This is a new era for Bethesda. They're doing new things, so it's kind of hard to compare old Bethesda to this particular situation, just because of the major differences in terms of who they're aligned with and what resources they have access to.
Yeah, it's weird because time has kind of flown lately. When Hargeet's like, wow, 3 years we could get Elder Scrolls, like that's soon. I'm like, it actually is. I just sat here and waited 3 years for a game, and here I am. But when you talk about factions, like the political system, that's what makes your choices matter. Like you can say you make your choices matter, but if there isn't a weight, like Fallout New Vegas is one of my favorite things, and you wear the wrong gear, you get attacked. You do something that the other faction doesn't like, they're going to start going after you, and it makes meaning. And that, not a lot of games have that luxury of really making choices matter. So that's super exciting. One of the other things you said just after that was betrayals, marriage, and factions matter. No dragons in the Elder Scrolls 6. And the moment, Hargeet, that we saw our first dragon in Skyrim way back in 2011, when we were about 12 years old playing that game, that moment, no dragons, Hargeet?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I suppose maybe there's some mechanic there that it just won't work, right? But that is an interesting change. I don't know why they couldn't fit them in, but there must be a reason, right? It could be that region just can't have them. Right? We don't know, right? But
no dragons, no buy, Hargeet.
Yeah, right. No, I'm okay. That's fine. Elder Scrolls are a pretty good game, so I'm okay. I wasn't buying Skyrim or Oblivion for the dragons, right? It was because they're really good games. So I'm good with whatever they do. They've got to have a good reason, so I'm okay with it. So no controversy for me. That's fine if that is the case. But yeah, I mean, we don't know if it's true, right? We don't know if it's accurate, right? But If it is, like, okay, as long as there's a good reason, I'm sure they'll define that reason, right? Good enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The lore! Skullsy, no dragons. What's the merit to this?
So I could kind of see it in a couple ways. Bethesda knows that they're held to a certain critique by the community. People will pick apart the mistakes they make or the choices they make and say they're being lazy with X or Y. They're reusing content. I think one of the biggest reasons they don't want to have dragons in TES 6 is because they don't want it to seem like they're just repurposing dragons from Skyrim. But I also think that the statement probably meant that dragons won't be one of the main things in the Elder Scrolls 6. I have the feeling there'll probably still be a dragon or two in there. I mean, Bethesda has shown us that they create a gameplay mechanic like the lock picking system back on Fallout 3, and if it just works, Todd Howard, they'll continue to use that mechanic. So I don't know why they would make this big system for dragons and giant creatures and all those types of things surrounding that and not utilize it again in the Elder Scrolls 6. Maybe we'll see other giant creatures and just a lot less dragons. And then also you touched on it could be the lore. Maybe because of the ending of Skyrim, the dragons have left or went back into hiding. But I still kind of have the feeling that we might have at least one dragon in the Elder Scrolls 6 because why not? I mean, why not at least have one Easter egg in there? People like the dragons. You know, it just would seem like a waste to not pay homage to the dragon some way, even if it's just small.
I wonder. I mean, we're purely speculating about the dragons at this point, aren't we, Skullsy? So, like, there does become a point in the amazingness of Skyrim where we're like, oh, there's another dragon. I'm going to get some dragon bones, right? That's just what it boils down to. The first few is crazy. So there are so many opportunities to have that big moment. And Bethesda's about that big moment, getting out of the vault, coming out, coming away from where they're about to chop off your head. Like those big moments happen and then you move on. So, yeah, no dragons. Maybe not. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. We don't know. Let's see. Bethesda Game Studios, Austin and Montreal working on Spy Team. I don't know what this means, Skullsy. What's Spy Team?
So Spy Team, a long time ago, this all started when people discovered Starfield's trademark. Ever since then, that's actually one of the things that caused me to want to start my channel was looking into trademarks for games. And Spy Team was one of the earlier ones I found. It's registered to ZeniMax, so it could be any one of the different Bethesda developer titles. However, it is classified as a game, has all the same classifications as their other games like Starfield. So Spy Team is something that ZeniMax has been paying to refile the trademark for a number of years now. So it's something that they want to put out there. And Spy Team was also something mentioned by this developer, this ex-Bethesda developer when you mentioned earlier in the show that leaked some stuff. He claims Spy Team is a Todd Howard pet project. And if that's the case, that doesn't align up necessarily with what I heard about the game and also what's said in this, because I heard that Spy Team, or at least part of my educated speculation, is Spy Team is indeed a Bethesda Game Studios Austin project. Before Bethesda Game Studios Austin was a BGS studio, they were Battlecry Studios, and they were working on a game called Battlecry, which was essentially a hero shooter, similar to like an Overwatch title that got abandoned and canceled when they were purchased by Bethesda. However, if they have all these assets, all these different gameplay mechanics and stuff set up for a game like that, Spy Team, just on name alone and the timing of the trademark, seems like it aligns with Bethesda Game Studios Austin. It seems like it would be a hero shooter, maybe with objectives that each team can try to accomplish before the other team, while also trying to kill the other team. That's the vibe I get from the game. It would make sense for it to be a BGS Austin and Montreal title. Montreal is kind of a big support studio for Bethesda. They float around and help on different projects. They play tested Starfield for a bit. In fact, they probably still are. But Spy Team is something that we have yet to get any official confirmation or even tease about, but it's something that behind the scenes Bethesda keeps filing the trademark for. So we're probably going to hear about it at some point soon. And if we're starting to get leaks regarding Spy Team now, like before the E3 season, we might hear about it this year.
Okay. The next one is really big. Before I take it to Skullsy, I'll just drop this one in front of Hargeet, because I don't know if Hargeet has seen some of this stuff, because famously Hargeet's not on Twitter. So that automatically makes him a very happy human being. Hargeet, the next leak that Skullsy put in his original post was a Mandalorian MMO from ZeniMax Online.
Hey, it's a possibility.
But what would you expect to see if it was a Mandalorian MMO? What could that be?
Well, it's an interesting point of like so you're supposed to be alone, right? So I don't know if it's like how do you do an MMO with that?
Bunch of
But
Mandos running around.
it could be. It could also be that it's like what was it? Evolve was the game where you're like the monster versus the 4 people. It could be something like that where you're one side and you're the other players are the other side. That's a possibility. I don't know, right? So, but it could be that you're also in a squad. Like Mandalorians weren't. There's always like you do have that potential. Again, it doesn't have to be based on the TV show. It could be just based in any part of the Star Wars universe, and so it could be further along somewhere, whatever, right? So, so it is a possibility.
Like
maybe you are in squads.
like in that time period when Boba Fett and Mandalorian and that took place after Return of the Jedi, like not long after is when that time period is in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, there was
like
what's the Rebels, right? That was the little cartoon show. And they
Uh-huh.
actually did a lot with the Mandalorian stuff, right? So and so they actually had like their own like families and stuff like that, and they all fought together, right? So there's a potential that that's what they're going after. So you might have like a faction of Mandalorians, and that might be what they're doing. So I don't know. It could be something along that along those lines. That's a
like
possibility.
Fillmore Pocket says Mandalorians are an entire nation. There was a squad in the first season. That was cool. So like you're both kind of touching on it at the exact same time that it could be based on the Mandalorian. I don't know what you call them. They're what would be the word, Skullsy, for the Mandalorians? What do they call themselves? I can't think of the word.
Not quite a faction, but like a conglomerate, maybe. That sounds like a business.
There's a word.
No,
There's a word right there
is.
on the. Help me out, chat. Like, what would you? The Mandalorian. They're a. It's not a clan. What do they call themselves? Help me out, guys.
Maybe houses.
Houses. Yeah, house is a good word. Son of Sun
Yeah.
says. Yeah, but you guys know what I'm getting at. So, Skullsy, what is the validity of this? What do you think it could possibly be? Is it a lie?
So this one is another one of those things to where there's been rumors about this beforehand, right? I believe even last year there were rumors of a Mando game, maybe not necessarily a Mando MMO. However, these rumors definitely have persisted for a minute, and we do know that ZeniMax Online Studios are confirmed to be working on something. They even have said so themselves that they will announce this next big project they're working on soon. Another thing we need to take in consideration here is last year, ZeniMax Online Studios put up a job posting for a vehicle specialist who they're trying to hire a developer that would be able to focus and specialize in developing the NPC-controlled and player-controlled vehicles in this next AAA MMO game or online game, whatever ZOS is considering it. So we got to take into consideration what games would be a big online game and would have not only player-controlled vehicles, but plenty of NPC-controlled ones as well, to the point to where they need to hire vehicle specialists. A space game seems like that would fit the bill more so than a game set in like a modern city where you can drive cars. While that would be valid, space seems like it would be a better setting for this type of thing. And then if we look at ZeniMax Online Studios, one interesting thing is it seems like their only confirmed game so far, The Elder Scrolls Online, is an online equivalent to a Bethesda Game Studios project, right? ZOS didn't have anything to do with Bethesda Game Studios Austin and Fallout 76. They did help a little bit, but that leaves Starfield up in the air. And this is something I thought previously to this leak that was posted. Maybe ZeniMax Online Studios is working on a Starfield MMO that will be launched like 5 years from now when Starfield starts to lose the hype a bit. But that almost doesn't make sense to me either. This Mando seems like it would be the missing piece that kind of fits this project the best. There's been some concept art posted from a ZeniMax Online or a ZOS concept artist that is space themed as well. So it's another strange scenario to where it lines up with other rumors, but again, it's one of those things that we can't put the verification tag on. But it does line up with the rumors that Bethesda is using up some more licenses that they have at their disposal, and Indiana Jones is another perfect example of this. So perhaps that lends a little bit more credibility to this Mando MMO thing.
Yeah, it also lines up with, I had heard rumors last year that maybe the Coalition was working on a Mandalorian or a Star Wars IP game right now. So this, like, I said before the show, if you're watching, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your support. I should say the chat is filling in with some hilarious plays on what the Mandalorians are, saying that they're Manda Bros or whatever, but Guild was the word that I thought was the best one. A lot of you wrote that in the chat.
Okay.
And if you're listening after the fact, this show is on Spotify, Google, Pocket Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms on Anchor, where you can just check it out and listen to audio only. So if you're audio only, and you're sitting there listening to the show, thank you so much. And if you're yelling with your earbuds on, like Guild, man, it's Guild, where, it might have been the top word in the survey for what the Mandalorian's in. Not that it matters, but thank you so much. We've got over 530 likes. We're at about 900 people watching. A lot of people are saying they could be a Creed. But yeah, this does, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's kind of why we're talking about this. The next one on Skullsy's list is that there is a reboot to Quake in the talks. And this is something, once I played Doom 2016, I knew that it had to take Quake and modernize it and give it the care and treatment they did to Doom in 2016. I'll go to Hargeet since he's had to kind of wait it out for a second. Hargeet, what do you think? What do we need to see from a Quake reboot?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? So how long has it been since we've had Quake? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yep.
So if they give it the same treatment as they did with Doom, I think, they could do, like, and Quake last thing was it Quake Arena or something like that? It was a big multiplayer thing, right? So I mean, it could be that, right? I mean, it could be something like that's very multiplayer focused. I mean, Doom originally wasn't very multiplayer. It was a storyline, and then they had the multiplayer capability as well. But it was not like that was the focus. So maybe that is what they're looking at. We don't. I don't know what else to really think about that, right? So I think that's what Quake, I'm guessing, will do, to have a more multiplayer focused equivalent of what they did with Doom, newer engine, newer capabilities. So that's what I'm guessing. But yeah.
Okay. I don't, like, my brain kind of cranks thinking about what they can do with Quake, because I remember playing that when it came out, and I'm like, oh man, this is so much better than Doom when it just did so much more. What's the validity behind a Quake reboot? Skullsy, have you checked this against Jason Schreier and these other people who are hopping, pushing you down and yelling at you about, you're not an insider, I'm an insider, like that.
Right? Even though I'm like, I never said I was one. Why are you hitting me? No, the Quake reboot, I think this one has some validity to it, because Doom Eternal did so well. Doom 2016 did well too, but Doom Eternal showed that there's an interest in these old original first-person shooter IPs being rebranded in a modern way. And Quake originally started, a lot of people who have played recent Quakes don't know this, but it was a single-player story-focused game. It had the multiplayer elements in it too, that eventually took the prime focus, and we got like Quake Arena as the main, the new Quake identity, just an online shooter thing. But I think that if they took the same dynamics they did with Doom Eternal, and they kind of threw in the Quake storyline and added a multiplayer element to it, that would be pretty well received right now. And I think that they did a litmus test of this when they rebooted or remastered whatever they did with the previous Quake, whatever buzzword is associated with it, remastered the earlier Quakes and released them. They actually got some success with that. People played those games, people streamed those games, and I think that this particular leak has some validity to it also, in terms of that id Studios in I think it's Denmark, somewhere in Germany, they have a location right now that's been focusing on making a new next gen FPS engine for years now. So what better way to associate this new engine and to release this new engine than by rebranding an old IP, by bringing Quake back and taking the more nightmarish elements of the old story focused Quake games and kind of giving them that Doom Eternal vibe, the Doom Eternal quick shooter action, just with a bit more of a darker horror themed aspect, because that's essentially what the earlier Quake games were. They were a lot more, I guess, on the horror and the scary side of things than Doom was. You had just a whole bunch of different monsters, like spider monsters that you could hear breathing through walls and skittering about as they tracked you. The game was pretty good, and I would love to see a reboot. I think that someone on Reset Era tried to say that they don't think this is possible. Some other insider named Nate. There's so many of these insiders. I've lost track of them, but they seem to think that this rumor isn't true. But I think it's an inevitability just based on the Quake reboots, the Quake remaster, whatever it was, and just the IP in general.
Yeah, and Special Nick in the chat says that they've been talking about the Quake reboot for about a year on their podcast. So it's just something that, I mean, even if you didn't know or you didn't hear something or got like a leak, like it's just something that makes sense. Something what the fans have been asking for. And when you see a remaster, you know something's cooking. And I tried the remaster, just felt too dated for me. I tried to play it. It was great at the time, but some things get a little too old, certain types of games. Let's see, Hargeet, the next one is the Elder Scrolls and Fallout remasters being worked on by In Exile, who are busy working on a steampunk Fallout-like RPG. So, I mean, In Exile's been building up their team. I think they're 200 to 300 people, maybe 200.
Yeah.
What do you think about them working on remasters of Fallout and Elder Scrolls older games?
I mean, I would love that, right? So, the original Elder Scrolls game and 1 and 2, I never played those, and 3, I started that, and the problem with that game, I think it didn't have like a quest log, and so you'd pick up something like, I remember something about this, but where the heck do I have to go? So you have to like journal everything yourself, and at least I think that was what it was.
Elder Scrolls, Elden Ring. Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, you know what? I kind of gave up halfway through. So I would love to have like a modernization of that, right? And be able to play those older games, especially 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if they're looking at doing those. 4 is not terrible. The 360, it's not terrible. It could still use with some modern mechanics, whatnot. But at least 1, 2, and 3, if they could do that. Same with Fallout, right? So Fallout 1, 2, like that In Exile made 1, correct? Is that what they're the ones who made it? Yeah, they were Interplay back then. They made 2, I think. I mean, they think they made Fallout 2.
Yeah, and so potentially having them do some of this would be interesting. However, to your point, what teams are doing that, right? They have, I guess, 2 teams, but they have 2 games they're working on, right? So I don't like. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So just that would be the question: is like, are they just getting more, or is it like, hey, they're hiring like we have with the initiative, they're offloading it to another company, but In Exile is kind of running it. That's another potential, right? I don't know, but if it's in-house,
I mean, that could make sense. They could do an oversight,
like right, and they're just running it
on that project. But it just makes me wonder, like, are they going to just kind of put controller support on it, get it kind of tighten, make it a little sharper?
I hope it's. I want it to be a remake because I want it like older games. Like, come on, those are really old games, right? I want them to be like more modernized, have a reboot type of thing of those original games, so we can play those stories in a modern, engine, right? So, that's what I hope they do. But yeah, that sounds really good to me.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I would actually like to experience those games because they came out at a time when I wasn't a core gamer as much. It took me a while to get back in. But Skullsy, what do you think is the validity of these remasters? Is In Exile working on it? Is this what's going on?
So this is another thing that apparently people have picked up on at some point over the last year or so, because I remember Ryan McCaffrey from IGN actually asking Todd Howard this specific question: would you be willing to let some of these other studios maybe remaster some of the older Fallouts or even make a new one? And excuse me, but Todd Howard seemed to respond in an interesting way. He either responded because he didn't like the question, because he took it personally, thinking that Bethesda shouldn't have to license Fallout out, or maybe he seems surprised that he was being questioned about it because he kind of shut it down real quick. In terms of the remaster validity, I think it almost would be a waste of these titles that are already made, that people already love, to not remaster them to some capacity, especially now that Microsoft owns Bethesda and these IPs and all these old Interplay IPs. It almost would be like, hey, do you want to print money today? No? Okay, that's weird. Like, In Exile, though, you guys have brought up a great point. They seem to have their hands full, right? So how are they going to go about doing this? Are they just going to oversee it? Are they going to take a small team to do this? Or what would the plan be with this? I think that the most likely scenario with this is whoever happens to be working on it, whether it's an Exile or some of the contract, I think they would release these games in a pack. I think it would be like the old Bethesda Gold collection with maybe Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Oblivion, and Morrowind, and whatever else they can happen to cram in there. I don't think this would be something they release one at a time, because while that would work, it just seems like it would be better for this to be like an all-in-one kind of like thing you can
classic editions.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's good. Risk it for the biscuit. Thank you so much for the $8 Australian dollar super chat. I don't know if you're still here. This one was a little while ago, but he said, I waited 18 years for Fable, so 3 years doesn't seem terrible. Sorry to go off topic. Great show, Skullsies. He wrote, hair as always, on point mostly. Risk it. And Jonas the Dad says, Skullsy, the hype is assuming direct control.
Yes, my overused catchphrase.
I love that. I love Mass Effect so much. Me
too.
Let's see, there's a couple more. One is that Xbox is shifting their studios to help chime in and help with Elder Scrolls 6, and that there is an Elder Scrolls strategy 4X game. What could that be, Skullsy?
To clarify, I think that what the person told me, now that I'm looking at the old tweet, was that they're just shifting. Microsoft is helping Bethesda as a whole with their entire workload, I guess. So even beyond the Elder Scrolls 6, seems like Bethesda is definitely stepping up the plate with how many projects they have going on at once, which it seems apparent just based on LinkedIn profiles and job postings. But as far as the Elder Scrolls 6 4X game, that's an anomaly, right? This is another one of those rumors I remember hearing about like a year or so ago that just popped up on 4chan somewhere. But now here it is included in this list that I was handed. So as to what it could be, it could almost be anything, because a 4X strategy game could be something. It's obviously grand strategy, right? So what is grand strategy in terms of what this could be? It could be like a Elder Scrolls Crusader Kings game, an Elder Scrolls Total War game, an Elder Scrolls XCOM game. The potentials for this specific thing are so huge that it's almost hard to exactly pinpoint what it could be, right? I would imagine that we already have Crusader Kings 3 with the Elder Kings mod coming out. That seems like that would probably be the best experience that we would get for an Elder Scrolls 4X grand strategy game in terms of like the Crusader King style medieval management and RPG king type of game. So I would think that this might be something that's more like a strategy game, maybe along the same lines as XCOM. Maybe you play as Talos, or maybe you play as one of the heroes of the older Elder Scrolls lore, and you actually carry out some of these legends in the game that we read about in the books. Bethesda definitely had spin-off games for Elder Scrolls in the past with Shadowspire and Redguard. So it might be something like that. They might be seeing the Elder Scrolls franchise and IP as something that's even more profitable now thanks to Skyrim's success. So they might be willing to do some more spin-off games, or allowing some of their other studios to do a spin-off game. And that also might be why Todd Howard didn't like the question, would you be willing to allow some studio to do a spin-off or to take the reins of one of your IPs? He seemed like he was taken aback by this question, and I still go back to that. There has to be a reason for that.
Yeah. In the chat, Special Nick said that this is referring to Project Wormwood, and our resident strategy games expert, Zocker87 from the RDX podcast, one of my good friends, says, let me find his clarification. He says, 4X strategy is more in the vein of something like Warhammer Gladius or Civilization. And he says, XCOM is a turn-based strategy game. So if it's 4X strategy, excuse me, Zocker is like lasered in on it, and he is all about finding out if that is coming to his hot little hands, because I've heard him. I can't shut this guy up about all of the Warhammer and strategy-based games that he Age of Empires he did a review on. Like, he loves this stuff. So if you need to know how to get through those games, hit up Zocker in his DMs. Hit him up in the DMs. He knows what he's doing. So that is very, very cool. All right. Well, that is like pretty much what Skolzy covered in the tweet, a tweet he deleted, but it's actually really good to sit here and kind of clear the air about stuff we're hearing, because sometimes you hear something where there's smoke, there's fire. Sometimes you say something and people are really, really rude. Like, a couple years ago, I had heard that Microsoft was helping with Dying Light 2. And so I heard either they wanted to buy Techland or they were going to help make the game like they did with Titanfall and have a 1-year exclusivity. And boy, that's some hotness you don't want to deal with for sure. Before we get into the next topic, I wanted to take just a moment to talk to you guys about my trip to visit with Xbox. A lot of people wanted to ask me what was going on. A couple of years ago, I hit up Aaron Greenberg Aaron Greenberg and I got to kind of hang out for a little bit during E3 2019. 3 years ago, the last E3 we've had, and the last one that'll ever be. So I got to sit down with my wife and Tim Dog at dinner with Aaron, just talk about life, talk about gaming, talk about the trajectory of where Xbox is going. I kind of point blank asked him if Fable was a thing, and he made this face, and I was like, crud, I think Fable really is a thing. So, these conversations get really interesting. He's a very, very super nice guy. He invited us out to come see their offices, and the pandemic hit, it got canceled. So I went this weekend, brought my family with me, and we went to talk to Aaron. He had lunch with us, and I asked him a lot about this Bethesda and Xbox joint game showcase, and which we're going to get into in a minute. And one of the things I asked Aaron, and I'll if you guys have any questions, you can kind of drop them in. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as much as possible. My mods will kind of try and keep those coming to me if they can. But I asked him about why you guys are still saying the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. And Xbox is very much about letting you know that we are Xbox and Bethesda is a part of Xbox, but they still have their identity. We want them to make the games that they want to make. And this is me paraphrasing like how Aaron explained it, that Bethesda is going to do what they do best, and we're fully behind them, and we're making the games for this platform, which is Game Pass and on Xbox and PC. So really good things to come. They are heading out very soon to shoot the game showcase thing, which is, people can probably figure that out because we're going to see this thing in about a month and a week, I think it is, if we're doing the math. So I would like to be someday involved in something like this. That's a lofty goal, but they're really excited about what's going on. Also had breakfast with Jeff Rubenstein, who is one of their main public relations people and reaches out to content creators in the media. And we had a really great talk and met one of their meme creators on social media, Stein, who is hilarious. Got to meet him. So a really good weekend, and the buzz around Xbox is unbelievable right now. The fans, as Xbox is seeing it, the fans are on fire. They are super excited. Xbox is on an upward trajectory. So we got to talk about a few things that I can't talk about here on the show. And it's like some hints about what's to come and what we could see this summer or what could happen. But I'm super excited, and I know we have a lot to talk about. So now I want to take a chance to talk with Hargeet Chani here of Game On Daily and Skolzy from his YouTube channel, Skolzy TV, to talk about what we expect and predict to see at the Xbox game show. I'll try to take a look at some of the questions as we go on. Sour asks, what can we expect from Alpha Dog and Roundhouse Studios? Well, Roundhouse, we covered earlier, could possibly be working on a Marvel's game. Skolzy, what's Alpha Dog doing? They're mostly a mobile studio.
Yeah, they're mostly a mobile studio. They've also been kind of quiet lately. We know that they during the Microsoft acquisition, they hired more people and they increased their studio size, and they've been working on something again. We just don't know what. I believe Pete Hines hinted or name dropped Alpha Dog as another one of their groups working on something. The only thing I can think it might be, and this kind of goes off of the Spy Team trademark discovery, right along the same time Spy Team was filed as a trademark, another game was filed called Giant Monster News. And Giant Monster News, again, like Spy Team, is refiled over and over by ZeniMax. So it's something that they want to own the rights to, which makes me believe it's something that is also ongoing right now. And Giant Monster News is such a weird name. Like, I don't even know how to begin to explain what this could be, just based on speculation. But it seems like it's more along the lines of a mobile game, right? Which would fit Alpha Dog. So if I had to make a guess, I think Alpha Dog is working on whatever giant monster news happens to be, and we might get this giant monster news this year at the Summer Games Fest.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have time to dive into both events, like what Xbox is going to do and what Xbox might hold for Summer Games Fest. That's like a whole other can of worms. I'm super excited about it. Hargeet, let's give me a couple games that you are very confident you've done your research, my man. What are you very confident we are going to see? Don't say Starfield. Come on, we know we're going to see Starfield.
Yeah,
Hargeet, what are we going to give me a couple games you think we're going to see and give us a little elaboration on that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're close on something like Hellblade, but we'll see. I mean, it's probably obvious Forza is going to be there, right? It's got to be. Whether it's coming out this fall or even if it's coming out in the spring, this is the show to put it out, right? To say this is coming. My guess is it'll come out in September, but so that I would guess that that's going to be there. Look, they said Redfall is coming this summer, right? And we haven't seen a thing. So my guess, it's about time. You know what I don't think is going to be there, and we expect the game to drop on Xbox, is Deathloop. I don't know that the marketing rights allow them to even put it on their own showcase. So it might be an interesting thing where they can't tell you that game is going to come out this fall on Xbox because it's a Sony marketing deal, right? So, but we should expect the game, right? It should theoretically come out in the fall, right? So, but we'll see. So I don't think that'll be there. So I think those are kind of ones that I'd see. And there's probably other third-party deals. Like I think they're going to take that. What was the Outriders? There's a DLC coming that I think they might throw into Game Pass, and I think that'll be showcased and announced. That'll be a guess because I think it comes out end of June, I think, something like that. So that might be something that they throw in as a Game Pass announce. And then what would be really awesome, this is just my awesome dream option. They can't do Hogwarts, right? Because that's a Sony marketing deal. They can't do that.
Yeah.
But there's 2 other games coming from Warner. And there's no reason they couldn't be marketing one of those, right? So there's Gotham Knights and there's Gollum. Right. And
I forgot about Gollum.
Pick one of those and throw that day and date in Game Pass. That would be such a fantastic announce, right? Make that deal happen. That would be so cool. Another big, massive fall game that would come out on Game Pass, right? So, that would be something I'd like to see.
Okay. Skullsy, what else is coming to the game showcase? If you had to bet your life on the accuracy of it. No, I'm just kidding. Now, what do you think? What do you think is going to make it?
So obviously we know Starfield is going to be there. I think Starfield is going to be front and center for most of it. But
how much time are they giving Starfield, Skullsy? What's your educated guess?
What's my educated guess on what we'll see from
on
Starfield?
how much time they'll give it on the show?
I think we'll get at least 20 minutes. I think I can kind of already quickly paraphrase exactly what I think we'll see. We'll see Todd Howard on stage with his legendary Indiana Jones style leather jackets. He'll talk about Starfield and how the team has been working on this for so many years and put a lot of hype and love into this game. And then they'll show us maybe a bit of the character creation, and they're going to show us walking around, interacting with NPCs in the building, and then we'll get our first step out moment, because Todd Howard said there's 2 step out moments in Starfield. We'll get our first step out moment where he steps out into the world and we see the alien world, whatever world they happen to show us in the showcase. We'll see a little bit of questing, some combat, maybe some vehicle stuff on the surface of the planet. But the way the showcase will end, and this will kind of be a big tease, is we'll get into the spaceship, manually start it up, take off. Just as we fly into space and just as we get out into the cosmos and see the planet fade underneath us, the showcase will end, and that's where they'll leave us. And that hype will then drive the rest of the interviews and pre-release trailers up until November. And that's the main thing I think we'll see for Starfield. I think it'll be a good 20 minutes, maybe even longer if we're lucky, but it's going to be a big old showcase, just like the Fallout 4 gameplay showcase reveals of old and stuff like that.
That was amazing. And you illustrated it so well. I felt like we were at the show for a minute there. Didn't you, Hargeet? Yeah, that's great. All right. So Hargy, how you feeling about Hellblade? You mentioned Hellblade, and people write in the chat like it might be time. You think they're going to show us some combat this year and say the game's
Yeah,
coming
my
out?
only concern is that Hellblade has been like primarily showcased at the Game Awards, and it might be that is like something they want to push there to get the audience that isn't just Xbox, right? So they might want to leave that reveal for that awards show. So that would be the potential where it wouldn't be there. I think it should be getting close to ready, right? So we'll see if they can pull it off, but I think it should be getting close to ready. Hopefully it's not fall next year, but sometime between now and the next June, I think it should hopefully come out, right? So,
Okay.
so let's say it's like February or something like that. That could be a potential for them, and that's why I also think it might be in the Game Awards instead. But but we'll see.
Okay, so there are quite a few games that are kind of long overdue to be showcased, either with a better trailer, like a bigger trailer, or gameplay. A couple of them are Perfect Dark and Fable. What are the chances, Skullsy, that we see Fable or Perfect Dark? Are those out of the cards? I kind of have my opinions made up on this one.
I think so, Fable's going to be there for sure. Perfect Dark is an anomaly. I'm not sure. It might be another year for that one, but I have the really good feeling Fable's going to be there, and Avowed too. I think somebody, it might be Jez Corden, said he heard that both of those will be there as well. But I mean, we saw the first Fable teaser trailer long ago enough that I think it's enough time that we'll get some kind of update, especially with Playground Games being so successful with Forza Horizon. They did a great job building that world, and I just kind of want to see how they can take that same like creative mindset into the Fable universe as well. So I think definitely we'll see some Fable.
Yeah, the Avowed thing's interesting because around the time of the last Game Awards, Jez Corden said that he had seen the gameplay. It wasn't quite ready, but I think he said something like you could see how it could almost make it to the Game Awards, but it probably won't. So Skullsy's on to something that a year later, it could be ready to be showcased. Now, I did talk to Aaron about how I confirmed with him, because he told me this back in 2019, that their MO is to show gameplay within 1 year of release. So if you see gameplay at E3, I guess we'll call it at E3, that you can expect the game will be released before the next E3. And that's kind of what they try to do. Big cinematic trailer 1 year, the next year gameplay, and then 12 months after that or anytime before, they should be ready. If there isn't a delay, they should be ready to release. So I am also with these guys. Avowed is going to make an appearance. And Hargeet, I know you love to talk about graphics, but what do you expect to see graphically with Avowed compared to our memory of Skyrim?
Of Skyrim. Wow. I mean, we already saw the
Get
trailer.
Into photo mode.
Yeah, right.
Photo mode with
I mean, you that trailer was beautiful, right? So the Avowed trailer, assuming it's anything like that, it should look pretty good. But I mean, that is kind of also a lot for Obsidian, right? Their last game was Outer Worlds, right? And that was not exactly a graphical showpiece. It was good. It looked good, but it wasn't like
very pretty. Very pretty.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's anything like the trailer, which I don't think it will be, but if it's anything like the trailer, it'll look really, really good, because that trailer was just ridiculous. It was really, really nice.
Jess says that Avowed is like Skyrim with like lots of color injected into it. So we can expect, right? Skullsy, we can kind of expect to see a middle ground of realism and color splash somewhere between Skyrim and Outer Worlds art style. Maybe I just picture Skyrim very, very colorful with lots of colorful spells and stuff like that. So that's very, very cool.
I would say, more of a high fantasy. Sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. He wants more food that he's not going to get. But no, I would think Avowed would be like
shout out to everybody with cats and dogs in the chat who are starving right now. We feel for you.
He's already had his dinner. I don't know what he wants. Maybe he wants some skooma. I don't know. But no, I think Avowed would definitely be, because the Outer Worlds was colorful, right? It was a beautiful game, beautiful world, lots of different coloration, and also that little interjection of that old Interplay humor. I feel like we might get some of that in the Outer Worlds, because there's some developers on Obsidian who were back, who were during Oh, my cat, who were part of Interplay during the original creation of the Fallout games. So I would imagine, yeah, it would be kind of like a high fantasy, colorful version of Skyrim that maybe doesn't take itself as seriously.
Yeah, that might be super good. I'm super excited about that. Let's see. I'm thinking off the top of my head because I have to build a video about this. And honestly, chat, I'm like really intimidated and nervous about making this video because there is a ton. I know we've all been through what if they show this, what if they have something like this in the works, but we're really literally at the point, and I see the chat writing that they're so pumped right now for where Xbox is landing this year and just directly after this big gaming event, that there is so, just for me to sit down and start writing this, like, it's nuts, guys. If there's going to be so many games to showcase. Our boy Randall Thor, he was casually talking in his podcast. He got quoted and written up by articles on the internet from the gaming media, but he said that he had heard from somebody that all of the Xbox game studios wanted to chip in and show something at the showcase. And from there, if that's true, right, from there, they have to kind of pick and choose what will become the show. But we are literally at the boiling point, Hargeet, where Xbox is ready to just start bombarding us with games. So what's one more game that you think might make an appearance? We've covered Bethesda. What's on your mind, Hargeet?
If that's true, right? We have not heard anything
Hold on. Biff Rinaldi says that his cat heard Scolzy's cat. We can barely hear it. So like you're on the show, relax, man. Like sometimes you hear a kid. I don't care. I got 19 million kids. I got a couple dogs. You know, sometimes somebody's mowing their lawn at 9 o'clock at night. It's a show, man. It's cool. Yeah. Sorry, Hargeet, go.
Compulsion. We haven't heard of anything they've done. What's interesting, if they have something to show, right? I don't know if they have multiple projects, but they have been working on something. Maybe that is something we finally get to see. It's been years, right? They bought them quite a while ago. Maybe they do have
Tell the audience what Compulsion is working on, Hargeet, if they're not keyed in.
Yeah, so actually I don't remember what the exacts are. I know they
third person.
It is a third person game.
RPG.
And was
dark
it a
fantasy.
No, it's dark fantasy. Okay, yeah.
Dark fantasy RPG with a female lead character. That's all we know, but kind of paints a picture.
Yeah, right. And hopefully there is something coming with that. The other one is Double Fine just released Psychonauts 2. And if they actually had something to show, what the heck would it be? So is it like, hey, you know what? We have a back catalog of stuff and we're going to release some of that? Or is it, hey, we actually have something already ready to go to give you a trailer for something coming years out? That would be an interesting one, right? Because like they just released a game, and would they really be ready? Because apparently, if you know Rand is right, they have something to show.
2021, right? Yeah, I mean,
last year. So that'd be interesting to see if they actually have something ready to go. That'd be very interesting to see. So yeah, there could be something coming from them. Now in Exile, maybe they aren't going to show their actual, the two main games that we know are coming, but maybe this remaster is what they're ready to show, and that would be what we get from them, right? So yeah, and Obsidian, they have a bunch of projects, right? So we might be thinking of Odds, the one they show, but there's also like the smaller games that they're looking at. Grounded might be ready to go, right? So that could be releasing. There's also the what was it called? It was projects. There was like a game in, was it New Orleans or something like that? Right? They were working on a game that was more of like a detective type game, something like that, if memory serves.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. Let me make sure I didn't miss something. Yes, I did. Rich Marharg. I'm so sorry I missed this chat. He said, Colt, did you ever play Black Sad? And can you suggest a detective game for me? Also, what happened to the Sinking City? Hargeet, would you recommend the detective game you played on Game Pass? Do you recommend that?
I played Black Sad, which was good. And Chinatown Detective Agency is not up to the level of graphics as Black Sad, but there are a couple of other ones that are like that. I'll go find some of the ones that I played that are kind of like that and say him in the chat later, but or sorry, just talk about him later. But yeah, that Chinatown Detective Agency it's pretty good. It requires you to kind of actually go outside of the game and go to Google and actually search yourself for answers. So it's an interesting game, right? So usually everything's within game. This requires you to go to the real world and actually go find answers and then use that in the game. It's an interesting twist.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So you were saying when I interrupted you were saying that In Exile is working on a steampunk RPG. Sounds like they've only been working on that like about 2 years.
Yeah, it was I was actually going on to Obsidian now, right? So, but so I don't know what In Exile is going to show. It could be that, it could be those remasters. And then for Obsidian, like, they have so many options that they could be potentially looking at, right? So
they're too busy.
Small games would be what
they're probably doing the early concept work for Outer Worlds 2. The smaller team is ready to release Grounded in full finished complete mode, and Avowed is probably ready to be seen. So Skulls, does that leave anything else that from the Xbox Game Studios that we might be missing? Are we going to see, this is right up your alley, are we going to see the famed Indiana Jones at this game showcase in 2022?
I kind of want to say yes. Indiana Jones is another one of those things that was announced a while ago again, so it's time that we could get an update on it. And also something this is separate from the Twitter leak that I posted, but I did hear that they're further along on this game than you'd expect. So if that's true, then yeah, I would definitely expect another trailer for Indiana Jones, maybe telling us exactly what this game is even supposed to be, because all we saw was like 30 seconds of Indiana Jones's like gear on a table, right? We didn't really get any gameplay information. Is this going to be an action game? Is this going to be like a dungeon exploring game? Like, what is this? What time period does this take place in Indiana Jones's timeline? I think we're actually going to get some of those answers this year.
Yeah, I mean, I dug into this. I did a video that I put out the day of the game showcase announcement that not a lot of people checked out compared to, anyway, I guess it didn't get a lot of, 100 million people didn't watch it. But Skolzy, to answer your question, the game takes place in 1937, which puts it 1 year after the very first movie, Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark. Why does that sound weird when I say that? What's the name of the first movie?
The Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, geez, I missed when I didn't say the word Raiders. I totally got messed up. So apparently, it looks like he has a ticket. He has a plane ticket, an old plane ticket that I blew up from a screenshot. I recreated it in my graphics program, redrew the thing so you could actually read most of it, and it says that he's headed to Rome in 1937. So what you can glean from that is that you will travel around Europe or wherever. As Indiana Jones does. It takes place a year after the first movie. So it's not old Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and it's not River Phoenix for you Gen Xers. You know what I'm talking about. It's not young Indiana Jones, as far as we know, unless it kind of spans. Oh, I don't know what to expect from it, Skolzy. I don't know. Is it going to be first person? Answer me this last question before we move on. Is it going to be first person, or is Machine Games going to move the camera back and relax and make it a third-person action-adventure game?
I think it's going to be both. I think that the game, because Todd Howard is attached to it, it's going to have an open-world element to it. I think the player is going to get to the choice to where they want to travel, what they want to investigate next. Certain elements of it will be first-person, where you're interacting with maybe investigating mysteries by talking and interviewing people. But I think that a lot of the dungeon aspect or the ruins, the tombs aspect, that kind of thing might be third person, because you think of an action game like what Indiana Jones would be doing, like swinging on vines, climbing stuff, jumping across stuff, running from boulders. That seems like that would be better acclimated for a third person experience. But Todd Howard's attached to it. He loves first person games. He loves immersion. So I kind of think we're going to get the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
All right. Hargy, do you think we're going to see Indiana Jones this year? Or are they going to make us wait with all in the dark?
It would certainly be a good show to put on, right? To have Indiana Jones. I mean, it's possible. I don't know how far along they are, right? So they have already shown us the teaser trailer, right? So that already happened. It would now be gameplay. So is it ready for gameplay? It might be. It would be an interesting one to add, and that would be a good, like, I know you were saying, Scully, that with the end might be Starfield. That could be a great end, right? Just throw it da 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 da, and like start. That
Yeah.
would be a fantastic one. But I don't know. It's a potential, but I don't know if they're ready for that. The other interesting point would be, would they want to put it in that, or put it in something like the Summer Game Fest or whatever, the Keighley show, or into the Game Awards, because that one's going to attract more than just the Xbox fan, right? It is definitely going to be an open, everybody knows this stuff. Let's get as many fans over as we can. So they might want to showcase it in one of those kind of shows instead. So that might be something that shows up in, I'm assuming there's going to be a Summer Games Fest equivalent, right? So Keighley's going to do something, right? And that'll probably be a couple of days later or something like that. So I'm going to assume that's probably what happens, that'd show up there if it's going to show up, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, there's way too much, and just diving into what could be at the showcase and then thinking about two pretty big things that they got to hold over. Like that's going to be the difficult part. We're going to sit on that Sunday and we're going to watch that showcase, and then we're going to think, oh crud, there's a couple things they left out. What are they going to show at Summer Games Fest? It's going to be we're going to be going crazy. I'm super excited. This is the XNC podcast. I'm the host, Colteastwood. I'm trying to run a show. I'm doing the best I can. The chat's amazing. We've had over 800 and 900 people watching the show. I appreciate it so much. And big shout out to Hargeet Chani of Game On Daily for being here to give his expertise, his opinion, and his infectious laugh. And Skulzy from YouTube to here to talk us. And he's given us so many gems. I learned a lot tonight, Skulzy. Some of the details that I've completely missed, some stuff that you've heard that I have not heard in reports about Bethesda. It's been amazing. This is the opportunity where these guests get to give a big brag. We're going to get people over to your channels or over to where you are so you can follow. Hargeet, thank you so much. You're a great friend. I really appreciate it. I reached out to you last night. We talked. I said, I've got Skulzy on. I don't know the guy. I would love to have you here. I think you do great with him. And Skulzy ended up exceeding expectations. But Hargeet, I'm so what's the word? Privileged to have you on my show. I do this show now. I'm coming up, I think, in 2 more shows, or the next show I hit my 1-year mark of the show, and it's given me an opportunity to meet great content creators and people in the industry and people in the community. Hargeet, you're one of them. Tell them where they can find you, where they can see your write-ups and your video content that you're working with Gaz and Asa from Game On Daily. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so GameOnDaily.com, definitely go there, and we will have stuff up there. And then on the Game On Daily YouTube channel, we'll be putting up my videos as well as Gaz's famous sauce videos. And Asa does streaming as well, so check it all out, right? So
Awesome. And you're not on social media, so I will get the Game On Daily site over there and YouTube channel in the description. But I already have the next guy, Skulzy. I was nervous to ask you on the show because you had to deal. We all have to deal with some type of outfall. You handle it like a pro. Today on the show, you're fantastic. I love that you put yourself out there. You give people as much information about games they're super hyped so they can dig into all this. You've done such a great job. I'm very happy to have you on the show. I think you did a phenomenal job, bro. So tell everybody about your channel, what you have, what's the content you're working on, and tell them where to find it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. It's been awesome. A pleasure to meet both of you. Had a great time. Always fun to discuss Bethesda and Xbox. But yeah, I primarily talk about Bethesda news, Bethesda investigations. I branch out a little bit. My channel is Skulzy TV over on YouTube. I'd love it if anyone would subscribe who's listening and isn't subscribed already. www.youtube.com/Skulzy. It's been a pleasure here. Stuff I'm working on now. I got a bunch of Starfield deep dive videos. My Xbox and Bethesda expectation video where I'll go into detail about everything we should expect from Xbox and Bethesda. And I'm also a writer and consultant at Once Lost Games, working on the Wayward Realms alongside the original creators of the Elder Scrolls games, Elder Scrolls universe, the OG creators back on Arena, back on Daggerfall, talented staff, amazing project. Dang. And you can check me out over on Twitter as well at Skulzy TV. So yeah, thank you again for bringing me on. It's been awesome.
Fantastic. I had a really good time. I was telling the moderators in on the other chat, like, these guys are great. Like, I'm having such a good time. Thank you everybody for coming here and checking out the show and showing your support. We have over almost 630 likes. That really means a lot. You guys really power the show and the chat. Thank you so much. You add so much and answers, and Colt, know what you're talking about. Thank you so much. We got one more super from Jonas the Dad who says, awesome to see Chani and Skulzy on XNC. Guys, I just thank you until everybody just leaves the chat, but thank you so much. This has been the XNC podcast. This is the Xbox newscast.
One more thing, Colt. Well,
one more
some
thing.
of you wanted the Black Sad equivalents. Chicken Police, very similar. So whoever wanted that, Chicken Police painted red, try that out. And of course, they just recently released Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 and Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot. So try those. But Chicken Police is very, very similar to Black Sad.
Chicken Police?
Chicken Police, yeah.
You won't hear that on many shows.
And animal detectives, basically, right? Yeah. So,
you know what? I'm gonna check. Hargy, he does dive into those crazy games, and he has a good time. Yeah. This is the XNC podcast, which is the Xbox newscast show. It runs live on the YouTube channel for Colt Eastwood. That's me at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and also with timestamps on demand on YouTube, and also uploaded to Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, and a couple other platforms. Check it out, or you can get the link on Anchor. I put that up on Twitter. You guys have been fantastic. Thanks for hitting the like button on the way out. I'm going to let these two gentlemen relax, take a breath. They've been under the hot seat and the hot lights for too long. Thank you so much for checking out the show. We're going to hit the we're no longer live button. You guys have been amazing. Skulzy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hargeet, I'll see you on Xbox Live later, right? As always, you guys are awesome. All right, we'll see you.